Hey there, guys. How you doing today? I think we're streaming. Yeah, there we are. There we are. I'm starting early today because I have tech things, and I'm hoping that someone is going to wander into the chat right away and help me out with some tech stuff. Because I have tech stuff. I've changed things a little bit, and I want to see if I can actually get a call-in aspect to this show, and I think that I figured out a way to do it pretty cleanly and easily. But how y'all doing today? Just gonna wait until somebody comes into the chat, and I can actually. Okay, when these icons change, it usually means someone's popped in. So, hello, how you doing? I know I'm early today. I'm just excited to try to get some tech stuff out of the way, to try to get new things going on. You can see I'm wearing a little headset. I'm actually going to take these off because I don't actually hurt my ears a little bit. I actually hurt my ears a little tiny bit. The problem I've been having with my audio has been that the way my setup is audio comes out of the speakers, but then the mic picks up the audio. And ultimately, the solution is to just use a set of headphones. So now I have a set of headphones. We're all set up. We're all ready to go. I hope you guys are all doing well out there, right? I hope you guys are all doing well out there. Things are nuts. Things are crazy. We're all still getting our lives figured out, getting everything sorted out. Today was literally just me running around getting stuff. I got my little pug here now. Milo's with me. I know. And he's been very, very excited. Very, very excited to, oh yes, he's been very, very excited to see me, and it's been very frustrating for him because I have been literally doing work while he's been, going, oh, I love you, it's you, hello, I love you. I know, it's very sad. I've been noticing more and more that, like, the rich in their media offer no solutions to the economic problems. It just seems like the society is starting to wake up to its own decline in serious ways. But the people who are against the recognition and the acknowledgement of reality, right, there's a lot of them as well. And a lot of people are confused about what to do and how to move forward. I'm looking forward to sharing this video, Pierre Poilievre, to illustrate, like, exactly how crazy things have gotten. Man, I started the stream like 15 minutes early, and I think everybody's just, like, so used to me starting it at 6. Come on. I was hoping there'd be a bunch of people in here already. That's usually what happens. But I guess everyone's used to it starting at 6. So this was a mistake. So I'm going to sit here for 15 minutes, waiting for people to come in. And it is how it is. That is how it is. Skip to the 15-minute mark if you're watching this from the past. Because this is going to be kind of faffy until then. Here you go, Conton, you can help me out with a bunch of stuff. Perfect. Conton's my man. Okay, Conton. When I hit play on this video, do you hear it? Does it sound good? How does it sound?
Well, the Liberals would tell Canadians they've never had it so good. They've never had it so good. Listen, this government is out of touch and Canadians are out of money. Here are the facts. Food bank use triples, hits record almost every month. Daily Bread Food Bank. GTA food banks say they're facing the highest demand in their history. Inflation is driving Ottawa Food Bank to record
you can hear me talking at the same time as the video.
And students are literally living in homeless shelters while they go to school. And the Liberals think now is the time to raise their energy costs by tripling the carbon tax. Will they cancel this heartless tax hike now?
Perfect.
This Prime Minister has added more debt.
So now what this means is that we can start playing video again, and I can start actually responding to video. We can actually do video stuff. So the channel's improving. Everything's getting better. Okay. So that's number one. Now, Compton, this one's going to be a little bit more in depth. Are you able to get into a Discord server? Do you want to call in? Would you like to be my first person to ever call in? The video volume is louder than me. Okay, that's fine. I mean, I don't care about that. So, I mean, I can adjust that. If you're complaining that the videos are too loud, I can just adjust them down, and that's fine. Call in some other time. Yeah, okay, that's fair. I'm just trying to, I think I've got it all set up so that I can give out a link, right? I can literally just give out a link to this, and people can come in here, and then once they're in here, they'll be automatically muted, and they won't be able to put anything they won't be able to interact with this in any meaningful way, but they'll be in the voice chat, muted, and they'll come in, and their order, of course, will already be set, because that'll be the order that they came in, and then I'll be able to unmute them, and they'll be able to talk to me. That's the goal. I want to see if it actually works out. I can get into a Discord server just at work. Of course. No, of course. I'm the one putting you on the spot, Compton. I'm the one putting you on the spot. So please, I'm not trying to... I mean, how dare you, sir? You say that you're a fan of mine? How dare you? How dare you? I know, this is the high-quality content that we've all tuned in for, right? We're constantly tuning in to the Canadian commie so that we can help him with his technology issues. There's a single fly floating around in here right now. A single fly. And it's just like the most absolute annoying shit of life, right? I would prefer there to be 100 flies than like a single fly, you know? Fucking annoying. Okay. Canada recession will come early in 2023. Like, we are now getting to the point where we can say with crystalline clarity, and anybody who disagrees with this, I think, is simply either not paying attention or is looking forward to the recession and to the collapse, has positioned themselves to benefit from the recession that's coming. And we can say with crystalline precision that the capitalist structure is creating a recession on purpose. We know that that's the case. That the Federal Reserve of the United States has stated it as clearly as it can be stated, that their objective is to increase unemployment, is to increase the amount of unemployed people who exist in the society. And this is all being done to protect the wealth and power of the rich. That there's another argument that can be created at this stage. They've stated it. They've said it out loud. And they're not really pretending. Like, one of the things that I think the older generation is not really understanding, right? And the winners of the society, the people who are on the positive side, right? Who are on the outside of it looking in. What they're not really understanding is that what we're experiencing is not merely just a downturn, right? That previous generations will say, like, well, we had downturns too, and there was, there's bad times, and you just tighten up, and then, the good times will start again, and all kind of, blah, 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 and you deal with it, and you pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and you do the best you can, right? Well, that's all well and good, but and it's understandable, especially within a capitalist model, but life generally, right? There's going to be ups and there's going to be downs, right? But the difference between what previous generations have faced in terms of the downturns and the upturns and all of that, and what we are currently facing, is that what we are currently facing is a purposeful, intentional implosion of the economy. We're not experiencing like the passing hand of a natural event. We're not experiencing things occurring at sort of a natural downturning pace. What we are experiencing is the wealthy class intentionally blowing up the economy on purpose in order to maintain their own wealth. And how do I know? Because they've said it out loud on several occasions. Like when the RBC says, oh, there's a recession coming. There's a recession coming. Well, okay. As if there's nothing to be done about it. As if there's no mechanism by which we could look at that and say, oh, a recession is coming. Perhaps we should do something about it. What could be done to prevent a recession from occurring? The number one thing that could be done in order to prevent a recession would be to give wealth to the populace so that they can rebuild an economy, right? Why is there a recession? There is a recession because no one has any money. That's quite literally what's happening. That the debt bubbles and the credit bubbles that we have created in the society are about to hit a wall, right? We're hitting walls. Like, and I should, for many people, it's not about to hit a wall. It's that they've literally hit a wall, and so the debt bubbles are popping, and they're starting just like a little like, but eventually they're gonna go, and the debt bubbles are gonna blow up, right? And you're gonna have this cascading effect where the entire economy is going to have to retract in on itself. And we're seeing, as inflation rises, this is the capitalist death cult extracting as much wealth as it possibly can out of the society before the system of extraction itself collapses. That they're no longer going to provide the services to the society that they once did, because they've come to understand that the society no longer has any money. That they're not going to bother keeping stores open. They're not going to bother keeping these establishments running because they have no one to sell to. No one has any money. And so if you wanted to actually keep this economy moving, right, the way to do this would be to ensure that people have money, right? Increase wages would be a pretty easy and clean way. Like, people are employed, right? Just increase their wages. Then by increasing their wages, everybody has more money and they can spend it, and they're going to spend it in their local economies, right? A clean and easy way to do this would be to increase taxes on the wealthy by, like, during the period of, like, quote unquote, the American dream, right? Like, where there was a strong middle class, taxes on the wealthy were as high as 90%, right? You could do that. It'd be very quick. It'd be very easy, right? It would be an immediate thing that would have an immediate impact, and for exactly the reason why you think, right? For exactly the reason why you think that if a person is confronted with the reality of, like, oh, well, okay, if I don't spend this money, it's just going to be taxed away. Well, then I might as well raise wages for my workers. I might as well invest in this project. I might as well put money over here. I might as well put money over here. I might as well actually trickle the money down, right? That's the gigantic lie of the trickle down myth, is that if you cut taxes for the wealthy, then they'll have more money to spend, but they don't. They don't actually spend that money, right? They sit on it. They offshore it. They extract it from the economy because that's what people do, right? They squirrel it away in little offshore untaxable accounts. And so an easy, quick way to prevent this recession, to keep the capitalist experiment lurching along, would be to just raise taxes on the wealthiest extractors, right? On the most effective and most successful extractors. Just raise taxes on them, and they'll either raise their wages, spend their money, and actually put it back into the economy, or that money will be taxed away, and then it'll be the responsibility of the government to do that. And we can think of very quick and easy ways to get money into the hands of regular people, right? Something like a basic income would be a quick and easy way. And I literally think it could be done in like a week. Like this is how easy I think it would be to actually resolve a lot of the crises that we're looking at. Like, and easy is not the right word, but simple is the right word, right? We have the systems in place. We have a tax code. Like, we've got a system of taxation. We've got a system to be able to actually move into these categories. We can do this. It's simple to do, right? Literally go to the tax code that exists and change the number from 0 or 10% or whatever, like or 20%, right, to 90%. Like, literally make that adjustment, and then suddenly you're going to see a big influx of surplus into the government, or a big influx of spending into your economies, right? And it's probably a combination of the two, both of which are good. And then you simply take the money that you are earning as surplus, and you turn it around and distribute it back into the public through a mechanism that we know works, and we know we proved it through COVID, right? So we have the systems in place. They already exist, and we can 100% do it. If we wanted to prevent this recession, that is what we would do. But we're not interested in preventing this recession. We're interested in plowing directly into this recession so that, 10 guys can keep hold of their wealth that they extracted from us from the first place. Like, this is the nature of the system that we have. And to pretend as though we can't resolve these issues is childishness. Like, we're really, really at that stage in the game where it's just straight up childishness. All right, we're almost at 6 o'clock. I wish that I had have just waited until 6 o'clock to actually start the show. I was too excited about the tech issues, the tech side of things. I really want, you know what I could do? I am going to put it, although I don't, you know what? I don't think it's going to matter. You're getting a behind the scenes look. We're going to just quickly put in, what the heck's going on? Go away. Technology. Straight up. Why is that doing that? That's really annoying. Oh my goodness. Technology. Okay. Call in. There you go. The hope is that I've got this set up so that people will be able to call in and just get into the Discord, and that it's going to be clean, it's going to be easy, it's going to be simple, there's not going to be any muss and fuss. We'll see if it actually works. Hopefully it does, because I would like to create a call-in side of this. I think that there is a demand for it. I think that people would be interested in it. And honestly, I would like to talk to regular people. I would like people to be able to float in and talk to me. And I assume we're going to get a certain degree of crankery, right? That's normal, I think. But it would be nice to talk to the average everyday citizen. Okay, here we go. I got a fly on my hand. There we go. There we go. Did I get him? Beggar got away from me. Sounds very close to what we might call an intentional man-made famine. I mean, this is another part of it, right? Like the central antagonism that exists in the society, right? The idea that there's an ownership class and a working class, right? The idea that there's that these people exist, or that this structure exists, right? Like, it's only a matter of time before the ownership class views the working class as degenerate, and the working class views the ownership class as degenerate, because their lives are so significantly different from one another, and yet completely dependent. Demand Better, how you doing, bud? If you would like to assist me with a little technical thing, I just put in the description a Discord link in the description. It's you guys see something different than I see. So in the description, I just put a Discord link. You can jump in here and do a call-in. And if you'd like to assist me with that, I'm just hoping that somebody's actually going to call in. Today's going to be very, like, let me make sure my technology works. But good to see you, Demand Better. Good to see you. We're just talking about Canada's recession. And how the power structure is actually intentionally creating a recession, right? There's no, I don't think there's an argument to be had. And you can see it in the way they talk about it, right? Like, cracks are forming in Canada's economy and the pressure is still building. More stubborn inflation trends over coming months could yet prompt additional hikes and a potential larger decline in household consumption and a deeper recession. Like, more stubborn inflation trends. Yeah, like the wealthy are looking at people saying, hey, you're raising prices, could you not? And they're basically just saying, we're not going to apologize. Remember when the CEO of Loblaws basically said that? Right? The CEO of Loblaws literally said that to us. I'm not going to apologize for being successful during this period of time by jacking prices on you. Right? That's exactly what they said. They don't give a fuck, right? And here's RBC basically covering for these guys. More stubborn inflation trends. Yeah, more stubborn inflation trends. Stubborn CEOs who feel as though jacking prices on citizens can actually participate. Or can actually, like, why do these guys have control over our food distribution chain, right? Why have we inserted a worthless middleman who happily jacks prices and fixes bread on citizens with no oversight whatsoever? And we're all just gonna be like, yeah, this is the thing to do. The way that we should have organized this is just let a single individual have complete and total control of our food distribution chain. And he's not gonna, why, if he abused it, you know what he's gonna do? If he abuses it, then we're just gonna go to a competitor even though we gave him all the assets in the monopoly. He's got a big giant superstore right in the middle of town, you know? He's got a huge building, it's the size of 57,000 parking lots. You know, it's a 7-story building and it's got all of the food that comes into the town goes into that superstore. But if he starts to abuse that and jack prices, we're going to go to a competitor that doesn't exist. That's what's going to happen. Yeah. Like, we've entered baby brain territory in terms of how we talk about this. Like, the people who are on the right of this conversation, and not even on the right, like the people, like the liberals, people who are to the right of essentially socialists and communists at this point, have entered total delusional town. Like, total delusional town. Like, they don't actually have any credibility whatsoever, and yet we're still supposed to take these fuckers seriously. We're still supposed to listen to what they have to say, and then rebut them. When it's gotten, like... If you want to see how childish this can get, you should see some of the shit that's happening on UK media. Now that I've actually got my speakers up and all this kind of stuff, I'm going to try to seek some of that stuff out so I can really show you guys what's happening in UK media. Like, in UK media, the people that are talking in these panel discussions, like the communists, because they actually platform communists in the UK, right? And they're literally looking at the people who are defending the conservatives and saying, I remember one woman, she outright said, like, these are the conversations that make me think that what we're doing here is illegitimate and that I should just move on and do something else, because it's clear that the right is disingenuous. It's clear that they're not interested in having a legitimate adult conversation about what's going on. Like, I was astounded to hear that on like a network television show, there was this woman that was just dispassionately saying, we should abandon this pursuit if this is the quality. And she like turns to the journalist, to the person who's supposed to be the moderator, and be like, and you don't confront them about this. Like, you don't confront them on their overt, obvious, total, ridiculous, childish. And it is getting to that point. And the arguments that are coming out of the conservatives legitimately do sound like something that they like turn to their 6-year-old child and were like, well, what do you think? And their 6-year-old is like, well, you know, rich people, they like to make sure that business is good, and so they're not gonna do things to make sure their business is bad. That's like literally what it sounds like at this stage in the game. Generation Y me, how you doing, bud? And we're supposed to look at these guys and actually take them seriously. Like, this is something that I think people, pro-capitalist people, are not accepting, which is that these CEOs and these investors, if it would make them 0.01% of their wealth, if it would make them a single penny, they would obliterate all of their businesses, impoverish the entire society, and walk away from the wreckage. They absolutely would do that. How do we know that's the case? Because they've already done it once before by shipping the manufacturing base over to China. They impoverished entire cities. They laid waste to America. They destroyed the middle class so that it could make them a little bit of extra money that they're just shoving in offshore accounts. They're not even doing anything with it. Like, the quality of their life didn't change at all. They were already slavishly rich, right? But because of the promises of more dollars in their bank account, they obliterated an entire class of people. We watched it happen. With our eyes, we watched it happen, right? We saw businesses get decimated. We have seen an entire class of people get destroyed. You can go to Detroit and walk around Detroit and see what happened to that city. Like, we bore witness to it. And now we're standing around thinking, they won't do that again. That's not a thing they'll for sure do again, even though they did it once. Yeah, they absolutely will. Like, they absolutely will. And to pretend like they won't is baby brain bullshit. Ash Sakar, or however you want to spell her name, is dope on BBC. Yeah. Like, at least the BBC is starting to acknowledge that, like, oh, maybe we should actually listen to adults. Like, maybe only listening to liberals, conservatives, and fascists is a bad idea. Maybe we should actually listen to somebody who stands up and says the entire system of capital is fraudulent. Maybe pretending as though the system of capital is the end of history and have a manifest destiny is a really fucking stupid idea. Maybe we should actually intellectually withstand criticism. Like, the Western media, almost across the board, in my view, is fucking fraudulent. Like, what's happening in America? What's happening in America is the dumbest shit you'll ever see anywhere. anywhere. It can't get stupider than this, right? You essentially have oligarch-owned network television stations and oligarch-owned YouTubers, independent media pursuers like Ben Shapiro or Steven Crowder or any of these guys, right? Just filling the social consciousness with utter trash. PragerU, for example, right? PragerU is a perfect example of this. And here in Canada, it's no different. We've got the Fraser Institute, right? We've got these institutes. Like, this is how the billionaires are choosing to trickle their wealth back into the economy. They're choosing to trickle their wealth back into the economy by erecting entire multi-billion-dollar organizations whose only objective is to convince you that it's just that they have all the money. Like, that's straight up what they're doing. And it's, in my view, the PragerU is as bad as anything Joseph Goebbels was putting out. Like, PragerU is fraudulent and disingenuous at the highest possible level. And their objective is literally genocide denial, is literally the denial of slavery, right? They're as bad as the Nazis ever were. And I don't think it's... And I actually think that that's just, like, the normal position. I don't think that's fucking controversial at all. Like, what are you fucking kidding me? The Americans already have concentration camps. They already have black sites. They've already obliterated everybody's rights. They're already putting fucking drones into the sky. They've militarized their police. Like, the Kyle Rittenhouse case, for God's sakes, should have been an enormous wake-up call for everybody across America. Literally, a little white kid grabbed an AR-15, crossed state lines, shot some people, and the establishment and the entire system went, "Good, you son." What the fuck are you talking about? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, so guess what, little white kids? You want to shoot people in the streets? The system's going to pat you on the back and say that you're a hero. I like the PragerU YouTube poop videos, though. They always make me laugh. No, what terrifies me about the PragerU videos, like, they're childish on the face of it, right? And you watch these videos and you're immediately just like, oh, this is the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life, right? This is the dumbest shit ever. But you see how many views they have? And even if 30% of the people that watch those videos are like, that's right, that's terrifying. It's terrifying to think that even 30% of the people who watch those PragerU videos would think that there's anything about them other than total fraudulence. Like, that's what's scary. It doesn't take that many people to destroy a society violently. Hey, Tinker, how you doing? Just to let you guys know, I'm trying, God bless me, to get a Discord thing going. The Discord is in the Discord is in the description. Oh my God, that took me forever to say. I'm even going to put it in the chat right now. The idea here is that you guys can join the Discord. That'll get you in the list. And then we've got a call-in component. I'm still trying to test this to see if it actually works. So if you try it and it doesn't work, please let me know. I'm genuinely trying to get a call-in aspect of this. And I think maybe I'll do it at like 8 o'clock or we'll time it or something like this. I don't know what to expect, so I don't know what to do about it. But if you guys want to call in, or even if you just want to help me out to test it, just follow this link, pop into the Discord, and even if all that happens is I go, and all you want to contribute is, oh hey, it's working. Okay, great, and then leave. That's perfect. That's exactly what I want, because I don't know if it works. It should work. In theory, it works. Yeah, they could be bots. That's true, right? They could be bots. Like, I mean, that's how it's all happening, right? Like, people like Ben Shapiro and Steven Crowder and these guys, like, they have this enormous following, and they have this aura of credibility about them because of their following. But, like, how much of that is literally just a billionaire being like, yeah, look, give them $100,000. So everything they do just gets jammed up in the algorithm into enormous ways, right? Like, the YouTube poop videos mixed together in ridiculous ways so they don't make sense. What are you talking about, dude? Is this something that I can search? YouTube poop Prager you. This is literally like 3 hours of just like this guy.
Or in fact, for a heterosexual man, not.
Dude, I can't do fucking PragerU shit. Although now, Anemone, how you doing? Good to see you. Although now I've got my speakers, so we can actually play video. That's exciting. And I can put these on, and we can actually do video now. So if you guys are see some video that you think would actually play video now. Good evening to you, Anemone. We're changing tech stuff. Tech stuff is happening. Oh, this is what I really wanted to show. Just first of all, to showcase the new sound system, huh? But also, I think that this is very worth watching. It's worth watching Pierre Poilievre. Listen to this guy talk. Okay, this is why these conservatives are going to win, right? This is a great illustration of why Pierre Poilievre is actually going to win this upcoming election.
Well, the Liberals would tell Canadians they've never had it so good. They've never had it so good. Listen, this government is out of touch and Canadians are out of money. Here are the facts. Food bank use triples, hits record almost every month. Daily Bread Food Bank. GTA food banks say they're facing the highest demand in their history. Inflation is driving Ottawa Food Bank to record heights with no end in sight. And students are literally living in homeless shelters while they go to school. And the Liberals think now is the time to raise their energy costs by tripling the carbon tax.
So the first bit of that sounds like me. Sounds like me, doesn't it? Sounds exactly like me. They're acknowledging the reality of what's happening into the society through the generation of poverty. Food bank usage, shelters, students are living in shelters while going to school. These sort of unacceptable things, but then it all pivots, right? It all pivots into now's the time to triple the carbon tax, right? Like, this guy is, what have I said about this guy? He 90%. He'll make one statement and 90% of it from the start to almost the end is absolutely the truth. Is absolutely the truth. Right? And then the last 90, the last 10%, or in some cases 5%, or when it's really good, it's 1%, is a fucking lie. That's how this guy operates. Right? That what's happening to average citizens is not related to the carbon tax. Although associating it to the carbon tax is a useful way to continue the apocalyptic suicide of the species.
Energy costs by tripling the carbon tax. Will they cancel this heartless tax hike now?
Because the tax hike is what matters,
more
right?
Debt than all previous Canadian prime ministers combined. Doubled the national debt. Those inflationary deficits have bid up the cost of the goods we buy and the interest we pay. And now, according to the parliamentary budget officer, we will have to pay twice as much for interest on that national debt, $46 billion, more than the cost of the entire Canadian military. Liberal solution? Higher taxes on paychecks, gas, groceries, and other expenses. Why won't the government cap spending, cut waste, so that it can cancel its inflationary deficits and taxes?
And this narrative is extremely effective. This narrative is extremely effective. Like what you just heard there. Major, good to see you. Nut Milk, good to see you. I look forward to hearing what you want to talk about, Nut Milk. I've been dealing a lot with tech stuff today, so I don't actually have a lot in terms of content. I mean, I do have some Ukraine stuff, but I really want to go through this. This narrative that Pierre Poilievre is presenting, what you just heard there, is extremely effective. And it's extremely effective because the Liberals and the NDP don't actually have a legitimate counter to it. Because the legitimate counter to what Pierre Poilievre just said is, what the fuck are you talking about? There's rich people hoarding a bunch of money offshore. There's a whole oligarchy, an ownership class that's jacking prices, extracting wealth out of the society, and causing a lot of problems. But the Liberals and the NDP can't actually say that because they're owned by those people, right? So they're not going to out their own ownership, and so they don't actually have a rebuttal to this. They can't actually, and they're certainly not going to say that we're acting in a way to try to move forward with the demands of the Canadian public while also protecting the oligarchy, right? And so Pierre Poilievre's critiques of the Liberal government are accurate insofar as that's how they're acting in order to defend an oligarchy. But Pierre Poilievre isn't going to say it, because he also operates on behalf of that same oligarchy, but he's the one who is in a position to be able to say it and make it sound as though he's actually interested in doing anything about it.
Just like when we were in government, we froze CPP taxes and we protected the CPP, increasing its benefits to seniors every single year we were in office. Now this government wants to raise taxes on those very same seniors. According to the parliamentary budget officer, in every single province where the carbon tax applies, Canadians pay more in costs than they get back in rebates. And it is especially high in provinces like Quebec, where there is no rebate whatsoever, but will have to pay the increased costs the government is imposing. Will this government cancel this heartless tax hike today?
So, the reason why everything's so expensive isn't because the oligarchy is raising prices on everybody because they can. It's because of the carbon tax. And that's an effective narrative when it has no counter. When the Liberals and the NDP are incapable of countering it with the reality because they're owned by those very people, Pierre Poilievre can simply stand up and say, prices have gone up because of the carbon tax, it's your fault. What's the alternative? There is no alternative. Want me to make a mod, John, so I can create and fine-tune an audio channel for you? I don't know what you mean, John. I don't know what you mean. What I am playing with right now, in the description, there's a Discord channel. If you want to call in, right, and you want to get into the Discord channel, this is experimental, so I don't know if it's going to work, but here it is. And you would pop in, and hopefully you'd pop in there. You would be muted when you came in, and then I would see you, click on you, and we would have a little chat. That's the hope, anyway. Well, I mean, yeah, he's right about the rebate now. It's practically worth nothing. But this is what I'm saying, is that the reason why Pierre Poilievre is being effective is because he's been put into a position where he can tell the truth. He can tell the truth, right? So he can look at a guy like me and say, wow, what this guy is saying about the Liberals and the NDP is accurate. Oh, that might have been because I put it in after I started. So you know what I'm going to do? Here, I'm going to put it right here. I'll get that fixed up for next time, bud. You should be able to follow that link. Pierre Poilievre is in a position where he can tell the truth. He can go to the communists and the socialists and say, what are you guys saying? Right? No, you don't need to be on cam. No camera work. Quite the opposite. He can tell the truth. He can just look at what the socialists are saying, look at what the communists are saying, and say what they're saying, and then pivot into a different thing entirely. That the reason why prices are going up is because of, pluck it out of the air. What's convenient? Well, what's convenient for a man like Pierre Poilievre is to go after the carbon tax, right? So that works for the fossil fuel executives. That gets the fossil fuel executives on his side, right? Go after the carbon tax. And for the average Canadian who isn't connected into what's actually happening in their own country, and that's on purpose, right? No, there is no media apparatus that's even attempting to make sense of what's going on, right? And certainly the Liberals and the NDP aren't trying to spread that narrative throughout, that there's an oligarchy that's dominating everybody and jacking prices. And so Pierre Poilievre's solution sounds like it makes sense. It sounds correct to the average citizen. And there is no alternative narrative being presented on purpose. Because as we know, liberals and NDPers bend the knee to fascists at the end of it all. Yeah, it's so frustrating that the only time our politicians are halfway close to doing a good job is when they're in opposition. Well, I mean, in this particular case, like, this video should convince you straight up that the conservatives are going to destroy, like, their interest is into the destruction of the species. I don't think a voice channel is set up. That's the voice channel right there. If you're in the general, you should be able to click down onto the voice channel. It's literally, I'm looking at it right here. And if this isn't working, then it's not working, and it's as simple as that, right? Yeah, so you're in the general. You should be able to just double click on the voice channel, which I'm seeing right here, and that should get you in. No muss, no fuss. And if you can't get in, then that's a whole other ball of wax. Russia blew up about a third of Ukraine's energy infrastructure in 2 days. So, about 30% of energy infrastructure in Ukraine has been hit by Russian missiles since Monday, the 10th of October. Ukraine's Energy Ministry Herman Halushchenko said Tuesday. According to the minister, for the first time since the beginning of the war, Russia has dramatically targeted the energy infrastructure. Halushenko said that one of the reasons is that the export of Ukrainian electricity to Europe helps European countries save on Russian gas and coal. He added that Ukraine is trying to quickly restore supplies from other sources. Answering a question about whether Ukraine will receive additional energy from Europe, Halushenko said that this is one of the options under consideration. The minister noted that Ukraine's energy system is still stable, but called on partners to provide air defense systems that could help us protect our infrastructure. Like, Russia is ramping this up, and they have entered a period of time now where they've essentially secured their initial war goal, their primary war goal. All right, here we go. So you guys are in the general, right? You guys are in the general. The voice channel's right here. I don't know what you guys are seeing. You only see text. Okay, so I'm going to make this... I'm going to spend some time on this, guys. Permissions. By making this category private. No, that makes it private. No, it should be just open. Yeah, for everybody. View allows member to view these channels by default. Okay. That probably had something to do with it. Can you guys see it now? Sorry about this for people who are tuning in. This is absolutely... It's one of these things where we're going to have like 15 to 20 minutes of stupid nonsense, followed by a lifetime of changes. Can you guys see the voice channel? Because I definitely did just change it. Edit category. Channels, permissions. Everybody can see it. Nobody can manage it. No, we're not going to let that happen. No. 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 I don't want you guys to be able to send messages. All this is fine. I just want to make sure that people can actually get connected. Like, that's what matters to me. Anybody? Anybody? Anybody trying to get in? Anybody trying to do it? Sorry about the poor viewing today, guys. Not going to be the greatest show. Well, while we get this sorted out, this is a major escalation from the Russians, right? This is... What the fuck are you talking about? Like, someone should be able to join the voice channel. I don't understand why... There's a voice channel. I don't know why you guys can't join it. Do I have to invite people directly to the voice channel? That's... Sorry about how frustrating this is, guys. Like... Edit channel. Permissions. Why is that set as a private channel? Okay, it is no longer a private channel. Yeah, everybody can view it. That should let people in there right away. Yeah, there we go. But now I do want it set up so that...
Hey, sorry for the audio there. That echo I had you on my computer.
Here, hold on one second, bud. Sorry. So that works. Yeah, but now you guys are coming in and you're immediately speaking. Okay. We're making headway here, guys. We're making headway.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Testing 1, 2, 3. But you're now you're coming through the wrong. So hold on. Hold on. We're getting this all sorted out. This is gonna happen. Mute members. Allows member to mute other members. Allows members to deafen. Because, like, I know that there is a way so that when you come in, what I want is the default position to be when you come in, you're muted. That's what I want. This is what it is. This is what it is. Allows members to talk. If the permission is disabled, members are default muted until someone with the mute member's position, which is me, unmutes them. So we're just going to do that. Now, Johnny, can you bounce out of the channel and then come back in? Perfect. And then if I click here and go mute, unmute, can you talk?
Hello?
Perfect. So I can mute you again. And now we just got to change one other thing. But that's going to be my general. Oh my God. Bless you all for tolerating this. Thank you so much. I appreciate if you are looking at this thinking to yourself, what a fucking idiot this guy is. Why am I tuning in to watch this fucking bullshit? I appreciate that. I value you and your time. I value who you are and everything you're doing out in the world. God bless you each and every one. Now the problem, no, output. We are going to put that through the speakers. Okay, that should change that. And then if I go back here, all right, Johnny, can you talk to me again?
Hello?
Hello, okay, there we go. Who am I talking to right now?
John Smith.
John Smith, how you doing, bud? You're a troublemaker in my chat, bud. I love it.
Not true.
Where are you calling in from, bud?
Minnesota.
Minnesota. Wow, Minnesota. What's life like in Minnesota right now, bud? What's happening in Minnesota?
It's America's Canada.
It's America's Canada. Well, isn't that lovely? What a lovely idea. So basically, everybody kind of likes you, but also sort of just begrudgingly accepts your existence. Here's Johnny.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So Minnesota. Who's the governor of Minnesota right now?
Tim Walz.
Tim Walz. What do you think about Tim Walz?
Ooh, not a fan.
Yeah, of course. Oh yeah, so Minnesota, of course. You're like right just south of the Ontarian border, just pretty near my home province of Manitoba, in fact. Right?
I don't know my Canadian geography.
That's quite all right. Yeah, big shocker. What, an American that doesn't know their Canadian geography? Get the fuck right out of town.
So I'm south. Well,
Don't dox
half
yourself
of
now.
south of
Don't dox yourself now.
how had the I can speak English.
That's yeah.
Half of it is half of it is south of Manitoba, and half of it is south of Ontario.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And how close to the Superior Forests are you? Do you live?
Ooh, Superior Forests.
I absolutely love like Lake Superior and the Superior Forest region, Thunder Bay, like all that
Ooh.
region. Absolutely.
I'm like a good 4 or 5 hours away from there.
Oh yeah, okay. That's still pretty good. Like 4 or 5 hours if you were to take a drive. You could, like, I know for myself, I'm a good like 9-10 hour drive away from Thunder Bay, and I still take the trip every so often. It's absolutely beautiful.
I think I've only been to Duluth once.
Okay, it sounds to me like you're coming through loud and clear on my speakers, and you're coming through loud and clear for the chat, so everybody can hear you. That's absolutely beautiful. Is there anything you want to talk about today, Johnny? And if somebody wants to jump into the general right now, just as a test, that would be really, really wonderful.
It would.
So,
nothing I can really think of. You want to talk about something? I'm in the middle of playing Final Fantasy 11 here, hating my life.
All right, bud. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bounce you, I'm going to mute you, and we're just going to carry on with the show.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your technical assistance. We now have, and okay, this is perfect. So a prairie proletarian very helpfully just jumped in. You are muted, and that should, and now if anybody else is out there and wants to just quickly, Content, for example, you just want to quickly, Johnny, you just stay put, okay? If you want to jump into the general voice channel, I just want to see if it's going to act the way I hope it acts, which is that the next person that comes up is going to be above a prairie proletarian, and then that's the way it goes. And so that's going to create an order list. And if that's the way it goes, then we are set up and ready to roll. And I'm super, super hype about this, actually. If anybody else can jump into the Discord, into the voice channel. I know that there's a couple of people, like Major, I'm looking right at you. Content, you're right there. Demand Better, you're right there. All you got to do is double click on the general. Even if you don't have a mic, even if you don't have anything set up, you can just do it. And just to get the idea set up, it'd be so helpful. It'd be so helpful. All right, Johnny, I'm going to mute you. Thanks so much. Okay, bud. You just stay put though. Okay.
No problem.
All right. Prairie here. Prairie proletarian. I'm gonna unmute you. How you doing, bud?
Oh, I'm doing swell. Yourself?
Where in the prairies are you?
I am in the middle of Saskatchewan here.
The middle of Saskatchewan, eh? So
Yeah.
Is it still who's the premier right now in Saskatchewan? Is it still Mo?
Yeah, it's still Mo.
Still Mo. What do you think about this guy?
I don't like him. He is not a representative of the people, obviously, and but that's what I expect from our Canadian system right now. You know what I mean? Who's glad I found you.
Who's your opposition?
I do not know. I don't pay attention to Liberals and NDPs. No offense to those guys.
Yeah, okay, no, that's a fair thing to say. Like, we're all desperately trying. All right, I'm gonna put you back on mute, okay, bud?
Perfect.
And all right, I think that this is working. And we're so I'm all set up for this now. Compton, what are you saying to me? No, Compton, you can't just call me, you guy. You gotta get into the server. Just double click on the general, like a Prairie Proletarian or Johnny Smith has now, and then we'll be set up and ready to go. Okay. No, Compton. It's not that you call in. You don't click and call in on me. You get into the general, into the voice channel. You double click on the general button. That'll put you on the list. That's the way it works. Don't call in to the show. Right? Okay. We did it. It works. It's smooth. It's clean. I think everybody is going to have a great time with it. I think that it's an improvement to the show. I think that Jack Reed, good to see you. Here we go, guys. Look at this. It's improving. The next step is multi-streaming. That's the next thing I'm going to introduce. And the multi-streaming is something that I've been tinkering with, but I've been too nervous. But I think that this experience has just convinced me, okay, I just got to do it. And if it's a disaster and the wheels fall off and it's a clunky kind of thing, too bad. I think I just got to start doing it, because I am not confident that YouTube and these places are gonna treat me well in the long run. And if I can create a stream for a bunch of different platforms like Twitch, even Rumble, even Odyssey, these sorts of places, I'm gonna do it. So I think that's the next step. So we've got this call-in show aspect set up. See, there you go. But now Compton's down at the bottom. That's annoying. Because my hope was that it would be sort of first come, first serve, right? That the list would create itself. Why did you come in at the bottom? That's so annoying. All right, I'm gonna have to sort that out. Just when you think you've got it. Okay, let's move on. Alphabetical, maybe. Oh, yeah, I think that is how it is. I think that is actually how it is. So if I go to edit the channel. Okay, this I think is something I can do in my own time. I don't need to do this right now. Because there isn't enough of you, first of all. All right. Rent cap not working. Province says, but tenants' rights advocates disagree. So we're actually seeing the CBC sort of justifying its existence, right? Like people constantly say, like, oh, the CBC is just state-run propaganda and all that kind of stuff. Well, if the CBC didn't exist, do you actually think that tenants' rights advocates would get a shake? Do you actually think that tenants' rights activists would actually get reported on? Do you think the National Post or the Globe and Mail would be talking to these people? Do you think there would be a lot of compare and contrast between what the real estate developers and what the tenants' rights advocates think? I don't think so. If it wasn't for the CBC, I don't think that tenants' rights activists would have any traction whatsoever, right? That the CBC does have a mandate, and that mandate is to the citizens. So insofar as it is state propaganda, and let's not fool ourselves, the CBC is definitely state-run propaganda, but it also responds to the citizens, because that's its fucking mandate. That's what it does. Yeah, I hung up because when I'm muted on Discord, I'm totally muted for YouTube and everything? That doesn't make any sense to me. Technology doesn't make any sense to me. I feel like the technology has been made purposefully obtuse. Like, this is something I think about all the time. Like, there's this idea that exists in the ethos of our society, the capitalist ethos, and the idea that competition will do it. You just get the competition to compete, and all of the competition will make the competition compete, and that'll innovate, right? But it just seems like it's just fractured everything, and nobody ever talks to one another. Nothing ever works properly together. There's no integration. There's no singular vision. There's no like, if somebody creates a program over here and somebody else has a program over here, well, and these two things augment one another, but they conflict with one another at the same time. And it seems to happen all the time. And PP's plan to defund the CBC is a constant thrum of conservatives. That's not even Pierre Poilievre. That's been conservative 101 since, like, Mulrooney. That's, like, all the way back. And of course they want to defund the CBC. They don't want to have to listen to tenants' rights activists. They don't want to have to listen to citizens. They don't want any outlet for the citizenry. They don't want any reporter to actually go and talk to people who are struggling in the society. They want to make sure that everything is corporate run and corporate owned, right? They want to make sure the oligarchy is the only thing that can talk, right? And by demonizing the state-funded media apparati and pretending as though their oligarch-owned media apparati is more legitimate somehow, they're going to essentially effectively silence anybody who is willing to stand up and fight for the rights of citizenry. That's the whole point. That's the whole point of defunding the CBC. And those of you who are listening and being like, "Oh, well, the CBC, that's state-funded propaganda." So what? So what? You know it's state-funded propaganda. So what? Right? What, you think the National Post isn't propaganda? You think that the Globe and Mail isn't propaganda? You genuinely think that the way to get a more informed society is to just cede gatekeeping of information to an oligarchy? What, are you fucking stupid? Like, that's the stupidest shit I've ever heard of in my life. The people who are walking around genuinely believing that should, like, shut the fuck up. That's embarrassing. Like, that's embarrassing. To genuinely believe that dismantling the state-run media apparatus will create a more informed populace. Just get the fuck out. Just get the fuck out. And it's not that the CBC is great. Am I in the CBC shirt? Oh, so I am. It's not that the CBC is great, okay? Like, let me be extremely clear about this. Like, the CBC is state-run propaganda, right? But it operates with a different ethos and puts forward information that you would otherwise not have access to. That the CBC releases information and creates information packets as a mandate, as part of its functioning. It doesn't do it because it's like, this is the morally we gotta do. It does it because, the University of Toronto created a packet of information in regards to climate change, and we're going to release that in an article. Here it is, right? That's the long and short of it. It's getting information out to the public that oligarchic media outlets would suppress, right? Like, the fossil fuel industry doesn't want you to know about climate change. They don't want you to think that climate change is a big deal. And so when the CBC says, new report out from NASA, here's the NASA report, well, they don't want that. They don't want people to know about that. And so that's 100% what the attack on the CBC is all about. And the fact that they're able to say it out loud in public and still maintain the support of the populace shows you how fucking illiterate everybody is. Like, if there was any reason to abandon the Conservative Party, right, it would be this. Oh, the Conservatives literally want to censor your media while saying cancel culture. Like, fuck you. Fuck you. I think that you're an embarrassing person if that's your position. Like, an embarrassing person. Yeah, keeping technology unintuitive keeps proficient usage out of reach for the average worker. We don't have the time or energy to learn it. Yeah. Well, and if you created a singular system, right, then you wouldn't need to like people specialize in systems, right? But if everybody, like, as a retail worker, there's no reason why there shouldn't be a single system, right? Why does Starbucks and Chipotle and like why does every establishment have its own system? I think that's fucking stupid. Like, it's just fucking stupid. It's just another destabilizing factor that exists in the society that doesn't need to. It doesn't need to at all. No, if the CBC was privatized, there's a good chance it'd be bought up by Post Media, of course. No, and then the CBC is worthless. Like really. It's just another one of these things. It's just another one of these garbage institutions that exists to defend the oligarchy. Like you saw that happen with the Toronto Star almost immediately, right? The Toronto Star basically just on a dime, the moment it was sold to Doug Ford toadies, it just shifted on a dime and became just a defender of the oligarchy. Like, we're literally looking at the worst premier in the history of the province today, right? And we're legitimately supposed to believe, like, and the Toronto Star is basically saying fucking shit, nothing about it, right? Like, it's an embarrassing institution now. I consider it about as bad as the National Enquirer at this point. Like, where are the scathing indictments of Doug Ford's dismantling of the climate change policies? 700 climate change policies went away. Where's the scathing indictment? This guy literally destroyed Ontario's future and Ontario's economy in his first year as premier, and he did it on purpose. And everybody's just like, no, Dougie's great. Let's re-elect him. Like, you know why that's happening? Because institutions like the Toronto Star are no longer credible. And why are they no longer credible? Because they're owned by Doug Ford donators. Like, what the fuck do you think is happening? A few acres of snow, good to see you. Do we have a different card for a health license passport? It can all be one card, like in Estonia. Filing taxes shouldn't be complicated, not more than one page. Well, and the idea that we're the ones responsible for filing the taxes. Like, they know. They have all the information. They've got all of it. It's their job. That's what they do. Just send us the information. Shut up. Shut up about this idea of me filing my... Like, what are you fucking talking about? Just send it to me. You know where I live, right? You've got all the information. Don't fucking bullshit me. Just send me the info, let me have a look at it, and if I go, that seems like a problem, then I'll contact you. But if I look at it and go, yeah, then we're good. Like, capitalism makes problems for itself, and then when it solves those problems that it itself creates, it pats itself on the back and says that it's super innovative. Minnesota has concealed carry all transport and some international travel in all our driver's licenses. We're... Like, so many things could be easier. So many things could be easier. Have you seen that graph with all the different CDN, Canadian media outlets, and who they endorsed in the last two elections? It's almost all conservative, exactly. And yet it's a liberal media, right? And yet it's a liberal media. And why is it a liberal media? Because for the last 20 years, we've been saying, maybe we shouldn't kill gay people. Maybe just indiscriminately murdering gay and trans people is a bad position, right? Like, maybe we should actually say that rounding up the gays and lynching them just because they're gay is a bad thing. That liberal media. Like, that's literally where we're at. That's literally where we're at with this. CRA will actually just do people's taxes sometimes. It's a really bad thing if they do, though. It only happens when someone never pays their taxes. Yeah, but this is what I'm saying, is that they actually do your taxes already, right? Like, when you submit your taxes, they go, oh, you missed, on page 3, Article 58B, you put in 5834, and it was actually 5835. So, like, they do that. So they're doing your taxes. Like, just let them. I don't know why we've integrated into our society this just absurdist, wasteful bullshit nonsense. Well, I mean, I do know why. Like, we've done it because we want every aspect of our society to be authoritarian and suppressive. We want everybody to constantly be bowing their head and taking the knee to a system that's constantly saying to them, if you don't obey us, then you'll be rejected. That's, like, our society is essentially a fucking dominatrix. And if you don't just say yes, sir, or yes, ma'am, right, then you're gonna get fucking whipped. That's how it works. Nothing is created to actually make anybody's lives easier. Nothing is created to actually help anybody. And it starts literally from day one. It's literally like, you spawned in, congratulations. The next 5 years of your life will literally just be you dealing with the tragedy that is your parents' lives, because they're never around and they can never help you out, right? Because they've got to run off to do some capitalist bullshit that doesn't matter whatsoever. So they're never around, so you're getting traumatized from the outset. And then by the time you hit, 5 years, so you're able to get up on your feet and look around and be somewhat cognizant, right? Then we're going to jam you into a system that essentially says, obey me or sit in the corner, right? And there are useful things that do occur through that process. ABCs, learning math, reading, right? These are useful. But overall, they're just teaching you how to obey, right? And not only obey, but also detach yourself from your family unit, right? Make sure that you put more emphasis on what happens in this building than what happens in your home. Because they're never around anyway, right? And it's just total fucking chaos in the first place. So this at least is giving you a little bit of stability. And if you obey, then things will work out for you, right? And so up you go. By the time you're in grade 9, that institution has taught you anything that it could, right? Grade 10, 11, 12 are worthless. They're literally just babysitter years. They're just, if the age of when you were considered an adult was 15 or 14 instead of 18, that's when school would stop. The only reason they keep you those extra 3 years is to just babysit you. And just to get you right, and to really, really get the people who are really the obedient ones, right? Really set apart. You're the obedient one. You're the one that's really, really bowing the head and saying, yes, sir, right? So you're the one that gets to move on. The rest of us, get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. We're not interested in you, right? We taught you the math. We taught you all that kind of stuff, right? You're not going to be the lawyer, doctor, engineer, right? You're going to be the fucking laborer. You're going to be the guy who's just like mopping the floor, right? Get the fuck out of here. And so you don't have any power to be able to stop any of this. Respectfully, as a high school teacher, I disagree, but I think that we need to dramatically transform secondary school. Look, I understand that my position on school is a bit left of center, let's say, but like, I genuinely think that we should take the money that we're wasting on 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds by putting them through this worthless institution and say to them, hey, you have an idea as to what you're doing here, right? Like, you have an idea as to what you're doing here. Like, when you're 14, 15, there's something that you're interested in, and there's some kind of burning desire that you have, right? There's something that you're attracted to. There's something that you're moving towards. There's something that's going on. And we do everything we can to deflate and destroy it, That's the purpose of it, right? Because what we're trying to do is fit them into a society that already exists and insist that their imagination of what the society could look like is bad. That we've got to make sure that, oh yeah, you shouldn't be interested in video games. There's nothing there, right? It's not like we're opening portals to alternate dimensions in order to live a life that is somehow different than the one that we have right now. There's nothing magical or interesting about that. That certainly couldn't improve the environment around us by exploring this digital space that is a revolutionary technology, right? No, that's laziness if you want to pursue that, right? So we got to make sure that kids never spend any time doing that and ensure that there's no connection whatsoever between the idea of teaching them anything and actually interacting with this miraculous, insane, crazy technology that we've developed, right? Nope, that's not a social tool. That's not a way to pierce the veil of our own existence and take a look at it and reflect upon ourselves. Even though we're creating an avatar in an alternative world, we certainly can't observe that avatar and then learn something about ourselves through the observation of that avatar, right? There's no third eye. There's no meta expression of yourself. You can never walk up and be like, hey, your inventory's kind of messy. Is your room messy? You can never walk up and say anything like hey, you've got a whole bunch of quests that you haven't done. Oh, hey, you have a whole bunch of video games that you've only got half finished. Does this say something about what's going on in your regular life? You can never do that with video games, right? No. The only people who engage with that shit are lazy losers who if they want to put their times in, that's flights of fancy, right? That's flights of fancy. And that's what high schools do. That's what they do systemically. They teach kids that attempting to build a society outside the one that already exists makes you a loser, and they expel you. Manage to act, and the demand for creating a new life and a new world and a new reality is so heavy that in spite of all of that, we've managed to do it anyway, to a certain degree, right? To a certain degree, but we refuse to integrate. We refuse to integrate. The absolute balls that we have to say that this is the end of history. This is the end of history. We've done it. We've managed to achieve the furthest heights of all. And the idea that as we literally become spacefaring people, that we're not going to adjust the society in any kind of way. And that we've literally created a structure that demands of us, that says to our face, well, if you want to go and do that, then you've got to abandon that. And there's just no path, there's no bridge, there's no gateway, there's no attempt at all to create any kind of integrative pattern whatsoever. That high school doesn't exist to create a generation of people in order to build a new society atop the one that currently exists, but to subserviate themselves to the society they live in. That's the purpose of the system. I don't think it can be reformed. I don't think it can be reformed. But if it were to be reformed, I think the best way that we could do it is we could say to these kids, hey, go off and do that thing that you believe in. We're going to keep tabs on you, right? You're going to come in here and we're going to talk to you about, hey, are you actually doing the thing that you said that you want to do, right? Are you actually pursuing that goal? Are you actually working towards those ends? What are you learning? What are you creating? What are you producing? What are you doing, right? What are you trying to achieve, right? No, instead of that, we're going to spend an entire year sitting in a room reading fucking Shakespeare. I have a degree in theater. I've read Shakespeare. The idea that we're going to take a kid, throw him in grade 10, 11, or 12 into a room and read fucking Shakespeare out loud, you know what you're going to do? You're going to convince a bunch of kids that Shakespeare is worthless, and that's exactly what we've done. That's exactly what we've done. You know how to convince kids that trigonometry and calculus is absolutely worthless? Put them in a room and make them learn it by rote for a fucking year, right? And the entire time that they look there, whenever they poke their heads up and go, is this going to matter in my daily life, right? Just hit them with your fucking ruler and tell them, obey. Because that's all we're doing. Right? Because we're not trying to teach them calculus or trigonometry. We're not trying to integrate it into the reality of our existence. And we're not trying to get people to have a larger understanding of what's going on in the universe around them. We're not trying to lead them down the path using the power of mathematics in order to actually convince people that there's a grander system. Because if we actually taught kids that there is a grander system, they might actually imagine a society that's better than the one that they live in. And we can't have that. The reason we're teaching them trigonometry, the reason we're teaching them these things is to see if they'll do what they're told. Because it's boring and it's lame and there's no reason to do it. Because it doesn't actually have an effect on anybody's life, and we know it. We know it. All we're doing is teaching them it so that we'll see how much bullshit will they put up with. How much mundane, trash, garbage. How willing are they to take the grand miracle that is their existence? How willing are they to take the grand miracle of them spawning in from an infinite reality and turn around and sell it? How willing are they to do that? And you know how you can test for that? You know you can vet for that? Here's a trigonometry paper. Memorize that. Get 100%. You get 100%, you can go get the good job. Because what are we doing? We're taking the fear of snuffing out their existence. We're taking the fear of rejection. We're taking the fear of social exclusion. And we're dangling it above their head and saying, if you don't do this, you're a loser. And where has that gotten us? What have we ended up with? We've ended up with a society of total morons who are unhappy, who have no idea what's going on in the society, who are constantly just being bombarded with childish bullshit, like these fucking dumbass Marvel movies, trying to glean some kind of moral lesson from them, as if there's a moral lesson to be had, because they're so bereft of any kind of actual teaching in their life that they're turning to hacks like Jordan Peterson, because they're completely removed from anything even regarding ethics, anything regarding what is this existence. Nobody's actually standing in front of them and actually saying, hey, this is what existence is. This is what we know. This is how we think people should act. This is how we think people should be treated, right? Instead of that, they're learning how to do that from fucking Sesame Street and fucking Adventure Time. Because nobody's actually teaching it. Because if a teacher actually stood up and tried to teach that, they get fired. Because the system isn't there to moralize and ethicize and try to create a society of people who give a shit about one another. The system is there to teach people how to bow their head to capitalists. That's what it's for. That's the purpose. That's why it exists. And if it didn't do that, then it wouldn't exist. Some other structure would exist in its place. Let these kids do what they want. Let these kids do what they want. When a 14-year-old says, I'm interested in video games. When a 14-year-old says, I'm interested in skateboarding. When a 14-year-old says, I don't know what to do, I'm depressed and anxious, and all I want to do is sit alone in a room, let them. Stop inflicting this obedience culture on these fucking miraculous gems who have been spawned into this reality without their consent. And stop pretending like you know better. Because you don't. Because the only person who's an expert in their own life is you. That you don't know what's going on with them. The best that you can hope to do is try to get them stable so that they can reach the conclusion about their own life faster. That's the best you'll ever do. That's the best you'll ever do. You will never teach a kid anything about their own life. Ever. I don't care how smart you are. I don't care how well educated you are. I don't care what you think you know. You will never teach a 12-year-old kid more about his own or her own life than they already know. That the best you are ever going to do is give them the tools they need to stabilize themselves, to expedite their own enlightenment faster. But it's their job, it's for them to do, and how fucking dare anybody tell them that they're wrong about what it is they want to pursue and what it is they want to do. These kids, each and every one of us, is a quantum being. We are born out of a quantum energy. We are spawned in randomly without our consent. And we're just here. And we have within us an infinite, plunging depth of energy that we can connect to and that runs through us. And that we go from the bottom and up to the top and down through the entire existence of the earth and up through the existence of the sky and space itself, and it loops and connects. And you connect to everybody else with this energy around you. And we have the absolute fucking audacity to turn around to these kids and say, hey, you know that impulse you have that tells you that you'd like to generate this kind of thing into reality, right? You'd like to manifest this thing from reality, that you're taking this idea that exists within the vast infinite cosmos and you're attempting to articulate it and create it into this reality. Well, that's lazy and stupid because it doesn't already exist. How you gonna make money? How you gonna make money? And that's the ultimate failing of the capitalist system. Because the capitalists only want to buy shit that already makes money and that already exists. They're not interested in something new. They're not interested in something that actually could change the world. And they're certainly not interested in creating a system that excludes them. They're certainly not interested in that. So if we were walking around trying to say to kids, hey, we're going to create an existence to allow you a platform in order to build a new reality around you, because that's what you are, that you're generating meaning at every single step along the way, right? This fucking idea that like, oh, we've lost our way and we don't have any meaning. Of course we've got meaning. We're meaning generators, right? What we're running into is a system that doesn't give a fuck about our meaning. We're running into a system that says to us, make fucking lattes. Just like make lattes. Fuck you, right? Like, fuck you. We're not interested in your fucking meaning. We're interested in our meaning. And our meaning is money. And if you're not interested in our meaning, then you can go fucking sleep in a tent. And so what has this done? It's opened up the doors to fascists to walk through and convince bewildered young men especially that they are not victims of a system, but rather theirs is a heroic tragedy. That if all they do is stand up for themselves and fight against the demons that they must slay, then they will attain victory and ascend the meritocracy, which is valid for some reason. And who are the people who always get scapegoated? The poor, the vulnerable, the Jews. Over and over. Anything except the system. Anything except the system. Because God help me, right? God help me. Yeah, it's you. You're the problem, right? You, the tiny little individual who randomly spawned in, spent the first literal 18 years of your life getting jammed through a system that literally said to you, shut your mouth and do what you're told. Right? Shut your mouth and do what you're fucking told. Yeah, but there's no system. Well, what are you talking about? There's no system that everybody went through. That everybody was traumatized by. What are you talking about? There's no system that everyone was collectively traumatized by systemically. Yeah, there fucking is. It's obvious that there is. And the truth is that you went through that system, you were victimized by it, just like the rest of us were, and now we've come out the other side, and the system's still trying to victimize us by saying you're the problem. Has nothing to do with the fucking system. This gaslighting bullshit that I keep tolerating. Ugh. Yeah, when I was a kid, all I wanted to do was make clothes, design buildings, and be gay. Fucking yeah. Right? Fucking yeah. What's the problem here? Like, what's the fucking problem here? Like, let people do what they want. Let people do what they want. What's the problem here? And then when you actually find out what the problem is, you realize that you got a bunch of fucking Bible-clutching losers who refuse to acknowledge that they don't know the fucking first thing about the text they're holding on to, demanding that their bigotry matters more than your life. That they have the right to stand up and say something meaningful about your life, but you don't have the right to stand up and say anything meaningful about your life. That's the most brutal thing about the far-right fascists, in my view, is that they genuinely are telling you out loud in front of your face that their opinion of your existence matters more than yours. These guys need to get totally fucking bent. Totally fucking bent. And these are the people who end up making the rules for how our kids are educated. Look at these brutalist modern architecture mansions, gorgeous and concrete is cheap. I wish I learned how to sew. I'd make such a better drag queen that way. Oh yeah, for fuck's sake, dude. Like, all of those, like, basic sort of skills, like sewing, cooking, all that kind of stuff. When I was growing up, that was for girls. When I was growing up, that was for girls. Would have been really handy. Would have been really handy. Right? Like, yeah, and yet people who pay rent aren't allowed to live in interesting spaces? No, of course not. Right? They're just for money. Right? They're just for money. I'm so sick and tired of this goddamn society, man. Like, we're literally imploding. Like, we're literally imploding. Right? We're literally imploding in on ourselves. This is an article from Workers Today. The rich and their media offer no solutions to economic problems. The political and media representatives of the rich continue to promote maximum confusion on the economy. No coherent perspective on the economy is permitted under the existing political order. Everyone is expected to go along with what the rich and their allies repeat about the economy. Everyone has to use the same terms, the same framework, and the same outdated outlook when approaching the economy. Alternative vantage points are not tolerated. False choices, bad options, and mixed messages abound. Week after week, one news source claims that everything is great, while another says the economy forecast looks gloomy for the next decade. Economic concepts like inflation, interest rates, cost, prices, and unemployment are rendered in the most tortured manner, over and over again, with different representatives of the rich constantly making unscientific and confusing claims about what is the real problem and how to get us back on track. Anti-consciousness has produced a stubborn refusal on the part of the superfluous political and economic elite to provide a concrete and lucid description, explanation, and evaluation of what is actually unfolding, leaving people disinformed and marginalized. This tiny ruling elite is plagued with old ideas and concepts about the economy. It has no interest in consciously investigating phenomena and reaching warranted conclusions. This August 21st, 2022 headline from the Register Herald from West Virginia is one of the endless examples of the mainstream media failing to empower people. U.S. economy flashes signals of hope and concern in mixed data. Like so many news items, this article leaves people riding the fence and unable to decipher real developments in the economy and society. This is usually done in the name of balance, which is really an attempt to conceal a multifaceted reality that can be grasped only when investigated consciously and objectively. One is left as powerless at the end of the article as when they started the article. Half-truths, incorrect information, hedging and waffling here and there. Such common tactics leave people with no bearings or direction. It is not a serious approach. Another confused source, The Nation, carries the headline, "Looming Recession in 2023. The article relies on capital-centered discourse with all its limitations. It provides no integrated, coherent view on what is happening in the economy or why. It ignores the fact that the Long Depression started 12 years ago and that most economies have been running on gas fumes since then, if not before then. The economic slowdown started many years ago and will continue for years to come. Years later, there is still no meaningful recovery and resilience in most countries, just worse living and worse conditions for the majority year after year. Living and working standards are not rising in the US and elsewhere. Endless chatter by the elite and their representatives about recession serves mainly to confuse and distract people. It seeks to embroil them in debates that do not serve their interests. Conflating different concepts and trends, this September 1st, 2022 headline from Bloomberg News. Strong economy is bad news for Fed's inflation fight. Also leaves readers with no coherence about the economy. What strong economy? Why is a so-called strong economy a bad thing? And what about the fact that the Fed ran out of ammunition long ago and is only exacerbating things? Other bizarre news headlines look like this one from the New York Times. America's dueling realities on a key question. Is the economy good or bad? The presentation of the economy to the public in this irrational manner can be found everywhere today. Objectivity of consideration is absent in everything, is reduced to what a handful of registered voters think. Everything is reduced to subjective interpretations, as if the economy does not exist independent of the will of individuals. On top of all this, the article openly admits that economists and journalists are bad at predicting economic phenomenon. In other words, they are not scientific. Many other examples of media disinformation on the economy can be given. Desperate attempts to find something positive in a dying and decaying economy are not going anywhere anytime soon. Such efforts continue because the ruling elite are terrified of more people recognizing the illegitimacy, bankruptcy, and dysfunction of current arrangements and uniting with others to usher in a fresh, new alternative. Research and experience show that most Americans are very worried about the state of the economy. Millions feel insecure. Everyone knows we have a bad economy, whether you call it a recession or not. High prices are everywhere, and interest rate increases by the Federal Reserve and other central banks around the world are only creating more problems. Today, many people have to work 2 full-time jobs just to survive. Millions live paycheck to paycheck, including many who make 6 figures. On top of all this, price gouging, bankruptcies, evictions, hunger, homelessness, inequality, debt, anxiety, and crime are increasing. The fact is that rising costs force millions of Americans to choose between paying health care and utility bills. Yet, Jerome Powell, head of the U.S. Federal Reserve, promised more pain for millions, more agony and unemployment, we are told, is the way forward. Why? How is this a responsible and acceptable approach in 2022? Why should there be more suffering for everyone centuries after the scientific and technical revolution made it possible to meet the needs of all several times over? Why more pain for everyone when objectively there is an overabundance of wealth in a society produced by workers? Is the public to believe that the approach embraced by economic leaders is the only viable approach to the problems confronting the economy, society, and humanity? And whose economy are we talking about? There is nothing bright or human-centered about the approach outlook, and agenda of the rich and their representatives, which is why they have not solved any major problems in decades. It is clear that what the rich meant by economy bears no resemblance to what an economy actually is. The relations people enter into with each other in the course of reproducing themselves and society. For the rich, the economy is anything that makes rich people richer, including war, price gouging, wage cuts, stock buybacks, aggressive advertising, and wild speculation on the stock market. These are not things the producers of wealth in society support. Working people are interested in using socially produced wealth to advance society, not narrow private interests. The ruling elite and their representatives view the economy in the most narrow and distorted way. They do not see the economy as an integrated whole whose many parts are run by millions of working people that produce all the wealth of society. Major owners of capital look at the world from their own narrow private interests and protect their own turf as they compete intensely with their owners of capital to maximize their profit, regardless of how damaging this might be to the natural and social environment. They do not care about how the economy as a whole operates. They do not look at the parts in relation to the whole or strive to ensure the proper extended reproduction of society. Chaos, anarchy, and violence prevail in this outdated setup in which greed is cynically normalized as a virtue. From a capital-centered perspective, workers are not seen as a source of value. Their labor time is not recognized as the source of new value. Workers are viewed instead as a derogatory cost of production, a liability, a loss, a burden, a nuisance, a negative consequence, something to be suffered or grudgingly tolerated. In reality, though, it is the owners of capital, those who legally seized the surplus value produced by workers, that are a burden and liability to society. They are a historically exhausted force that drags society backwards. They are a block to progress. In this fractured context, it is also troubling that humans and citizens are constantly reduced to consumers, and consumerism is given as that which defines the modern human personality. Buying and subjugating oneself to objects, things, and commodities is given as the core of the modern individual, a phenomenon further exacerbated by social media. Capitalist ideology turns reality upside down. It mixes up who exploits who. It conceals the irreconcilable antagonistic interests between workers and the financial oligarchy. It hides the fact that wage slavery is the main mode of profit maximization for owners of capital. It obscures severe contradictions between workers and the rich. People can expect no clarity or guidance from the rich and their media, which is why they must rely on their own conscious acts of finding out and undertake their own efforts to disseminate information, analysis, and perspective. There is no reason for today's economies to be as chaotic, anarchic, and fragmented as they are. They must be brought under conscious human control and organized to advance the general interests of society, not a tiny ruling elite that uses its power to get richer while disinforming and marginalizing people. Like, get fucked, right? Like, get fucked. Like, get completely fucked. Yeah, Terry McGinnis. Don't know if I've ever seen you here, bud. Good to see you. Sowing division allows for exploitation, of course. And they will divide along any line. Along any line. That's why I find what's happening in the quote-unquote battle of the sexes to be so disturbing. I find it to be disturbing what's happening. That what we're seeing now is we're seeing the quote-unquote manosphere start to really exert itself and start to really become like something of a powerful force. a bunch of young men who are fucking totally clueless, who think that women are objects for them to possess, sitting around griping that they can't get their dick sucked in a society that is completely designed to destroy all people who are involved in it. So that instead of these young men looking at the system of capital and understanding that how the system is destroying them is also destroying the women they desire, they instead turn their gaze away from the system and look at the women and say, what's your problem? Like, hard to know why people aren't having any kids. Hard to understand. And the system of capital is happy that that's happening and is more than willing to pour resources into young men who are willing to scapegoat women instead of pointing their finger at the system of capital that's obviously the culprit. And at this stage in the game, we can say obviously. It's obvious that that's the case. You sell yourself for money to people you don't meet. You don't know who your owners are. If you do, it's like a one-time meeting with a handshake and a how you do. Perhaps even a handshake. You don't know who these people are. You don't know what they've done. You don't know what they represent. You couldn't find their house, and they're certainly not going to invite you there. So we have a faceless oligarchy that you sell yourself to. And it's obvious that that's what's happening. Obviously. And the only solution that these loser capitalists can come up with is, oh, well, then you just need to invest. Which is no different than saying to a slave, oh, you just need to become a slave owner. Like, the collapses that are coming because of the vicious, purposeful incompetence and malice of the ruling class are going to be extreme. Extreme. And the extremity of it will be based on one principle and one principle alone. No one has any fucking money. No one has any fucking money. That's the long and short of it. That we've built a society and we've built a structure that says, well, if you want to participate, you need some money. And when we say, well, how do we get money? The solution is, well, sell yourself to the guys with money. Oh, by the way, we're going to cut taxes for those guys. Like, we are not having adult conversations anymore. I don't think we're actually capable of it. I don't think we're interested in it. I think what we actually want to do is sit around and gripe about girls. I think that's what we actually want to do. That's certainly what the young men are doing. That's certainly what I'm seeing. That instead of actually saying, like, yeah, the system of capital is destroying everybody and exhausting everything and making it impossible for anybody to connect with one another and certainly have meaningful relationships, right? And so what you end up with is an exhausted group of women who, when they actually do have any amount of energy or inclination to pursue any kind of romantic relationship, it's just a fuck. It's just sex. That's all they want. And so when they're having sex and they're looking on their goddamn Tinder, they're not going to even give the time of day to the average anymore, which is why the most handsome men and the most well-positioned men are having the most sex, and they're having sex with all the women. Because the women have one day a month. That's it. So you have an entire society of women who are so fucking exhausted, so depleted, that are just looking for a quick fuck one day a month. And they're going to go to the most handsome, most well-positioned guy who's having sex all the time. Leaving everybody else out in the fucking cold. And why? Because no one's got any time to deal with any of this shit. No one's actually talking to one another. No one's actually addressing it. And when we do talk to one another, it's from a position of, you know what your problem is? Like, get completely fucked. Everyone, queers included, could have better romantic relationships if we didn't have to devote so much time and energy to capitalism to survive. Exactly. Like, but exactly, right? Like literally a single generation ago, like one generation ago, a single wage earner at a fucking minimum wage job could have a house, kids, a wife, a car. That was real. That was a fact. And in the space of a single generation, that's been completely fucking destroyed. And we're all walking around as if that didn't happen, as if what we're experiencing is completely fucking normal. Yeah, girls gross, they have the cooties. Neil Postman has a good perspective on this as well. Yeah, that's good to know. Some people hate the gays, and that divides the working class, and some people hate the people that hate the gays, and that further divides the working class. Cultural issues are automatic losers. Yeah. But that's absolutely the truth. Which is why they spend billions of dollars to fill the airwaves with it. Right? That's why we're supposed to do nothing but talk about the culture war. Right? We certainly can't talk about the class war. That the wealthy have openly admitted they do. Like this is my favorite part, is that like I'll say things like class war, and the illiterate left, the illiterate libertarians will be like, oh, it's just you're making it up and all. Literally, Warren Buffett has said, yeah, there's a class war. It's my class going to war against yours. They admit it openly. There's no pretending coming out of the capitalist class. If you actually listen to what they say. We had forgotten that alongside Orwell's dark vision, there was another, slightly older, slightly less well-known, equally chilling, Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. Contrary to common belief even amongst the educated, Huxley and Orwell did not prophesy the same thing. Orwell warns that we will be overcome by an externally imposed oppression. I mean, I'm pretty soft on Orwell these days. I don't really think that I take a look at Orwell and, like, first of all, Orwell worked for British intelligence, right? So let's not bullshit ourselves about who Orwell was, right? Like, just because he was taught in high school doesn't mean, like, that should make you more suspicious of Orwell. Like, oh, we're teaching 1984 to kids in an institution that's designed to foster obedience. Yeah, we should be a bit more skeptical of Orwell. Oh, Orwell worked for the equivalent of the British CIA. Oh, we should be more skeptical of Orwell, right? I actually think that Orwell exists in order to make citizens skeptical and suspicious of one another. That when you read 1984, right, the design of it is to look at your neighbor through the lens of suspicion, is to say to yourself, constantly have yourself looking over your shoulder and saying, is my neighbor oppressing me? Am I being oppressed by my neighbor? And I think it's been extremely effective. I think it's worked out, right? Do you know the name of your next door neighbor? Like, be serious. What's the name of your next door neighbor? Do you know? Like, we've been completely alienated and atomized. There is no such thing as a community any longer. It doesn't exist. That's the reason why we're all fleeing to this digital platform. Because we have a desire for community and a desire to no longer be isolated. And a desire to break free from the absurdist reality that has been created around us. Because there's nothing out there anymore. And we all know it. Like, we all know it. Panopticon, as discussed by Foucault, describes what you mean about surveying your neighbors, yeah. My next door neighbor is my great-grandmother. I live in the middle of nowhere. Thanks, Mocked. That's wholesome. That's wholesome as shit. There can be no digital community. I mean, I agree with that to a certain extent. That what I am seeing in the quote-unquote digital communities is, as long as it stays here, like as long as you and I stay here, as long as I stay on this couch and you stay on your couch or wherever it is you're sitting, right? As long as we stay like this, the power structure is fine. Which is why my only major critique of the quote-unquote online left, and that's people like Hassan, right? But there are others, is that they are not actively trying to galvanize people into the streets. That's the logical step for us. The logical step for channels like this and for communication systems like this, for communities like this, if you prefer, is to galvanize people and get them into the streets and surround the halls of power. That's the role of all of this. And I don't see the online left doing it. I don't see the online left attempting this. And yeah, I think that's right. Like, Hassan is no longer has skin in the game. That he has a lot to lose by galvanizing people into the streets at this point, right? That for him, it's not about building a movement, it's about building a business. And that's the distinction that I see over and over and over again, right? And that's the reason why formerly leftist channels disintegrated, like the Young Turks, right? That because at the end of the day, the Young Turks ceased to be interested in building a movement and became interested in building a business. Yeah, he's captured by the same system he opposes. Yeah, and as long as he is willing, like at this stage in the game, Hassan's existence is no different than the existence of somebody like Jon Stewart, right? That culturally speaking, they're on the same level. That Hassan is essentially a comedian. Like, sure, you could say like a journalist or a commentator if you prefer, right? Or influencer, which is the fun word to use. But that's essentially Jon Stewart at this stage in the game, right? Maybe the platform's a little bit different. Maybe like the thing is a little different, but the position, the station that exists within the society is the same. That he's throwing stones and pointing out bullshit, which the system is more than happy. The system is more than happy to have that kind of stuff. Those sorts of people have existed all throughout American history. Nothing new there, right? Nothing new there. What matters is whether or not you're going to galvanize those people and surround the halls of power. That's what matters. And if somebody like Hassan was to do that, you bet he'd be deplatformed. You bet. Sure as shooting. They just announced it's going to be 50% now, Terry. It's a 50-50 split now. I just heard about 2 people who died by gassing themselves because they were using a barbecue to warm themselves. Jesus fucking Christ. Like, and don't get me wrong, like, I do think that Hassan's observations are astute. And I think that if you care about the WWE, like if you really want somebody to comment on like Shawn Michaels, he went in there and he gave Andre the Giant the scissor kick because Andre the Giant said something bad about his wife at SummerSlam 583, right? Like if you really want somebody to comment on the show, like on the theater, Hassan's good. He's good for that, right? But my issue that I take with Hassan in that regard is he still seems to believe that it's something other than theater. He still seems to think that there's something legitimate happening and that it's actually going to matter who gets put into these positions at this stage in the game. That perhaps there was a time in American history where it mattered. Perhaps there was, but that's gone. That doesn't exist anymore, right? The power structure in America is never going to respond to what the people want and what the people need. Yeah, he's just an entertainer. Entertainer is a good word to use, right? He's not too much different than someone like Jon Stewart, right? Like really, at the end of the day. And Jon Stewart, I remember there was a moment. Jon Stewart did like a live show, right? And there was kind of this swirling expectation that Jon Stewart was going to actually begin like a street movement and begin some kind of legitimate political movement. There was this swirling thing. And when asked about it afterwards, Jon Stewart said, the reason we did the live show was to diffuse those expectations, was to take this idea that we were going to move and become that and shut them down. So the system is more than happy to facilitate figures like Jon Stewart or Hassan. It's more than happy to allow that level of criticism to occur. It's more than happy, as long as you do it on your couch. The Rally for Sanity, I think that was the name of it. Because at the end of the day, the cost will be too high for these people, right? Someone like Jon Stewart, saw what happened to Bill Maher. Jon Stewart knows the history of what happens in American politics if you actually stand up for something in a meaningful way. Like, all Jon Stewart is doing is confirming that which we already know, that our political class is bankrupt. That when Stewart sits down with one of these politicians, he's not changing anybody's mind, right? He's just confirming that which we already know. And the system is fine with that. That doesn't matter to them. If you need to use fire inside, make sure you own a carbon monoxide detector. You got it, Major. These influencers really exhibit "F you, I got mine." I mean, but this is the thing, is that I think their counter, and it was Jon Stewart's counter, was I think that the position that I have has value, right? That I'm here to educate, that I'm here to inform, that I'm here to shed light, right? And there is a legitimacy to that. There is a legitimacy to that. But we also need the revolutionaries. We also need the people who understand what must be done. And at this stage in the game, it must be done. That it's no mistake that we're embroiled in this massive culture war right now. Like, the Occupy movement and the Tea Party movement, its twin movement, were terrifying for the establishment. That was a terrifying moment for the establishment elites. Because the terror is always, as Nixon said, what if they just come in here? That's always the terror. That the millions of people who have gathered on the streets can just storm the buildings and burn them to the ground. They can do that. Of course they can. It shows a sign of great restraint that the Occupy movement did not burn Wall Street cities down and Wall Street buildings down. It shows great restraint that did not occur. And after the Occupy movement, the establishment was so terrified that they knew they needed to distract us, and so what did they do? They grabbed obscure studies that existed in universities and elevated them to the highest levels of our media systems and bombarded us with them so that we would bicker amongst ourselves about, well, what is a woman? What is a man? Instead of saying, wait a minute, we're the 99%, they're the 1%, they fleeced us. They fleeced us. And while the conversation about what is a man and what is a woman is interesting and has a validity to it, it shouldn't be done in replacement of a far more fundamental conversation. Why do we have owners? Why are we owned? Why do we sell ourselves to owners who we never meet? Stewart and Colbert on the Rally for Sanity specifically asked people who would hold up a sign like 9/11 was an inside job not to come. Posted a sign John held up on his show on Discord. What's going on? What are you saying to me, bud? What are you saying to me? Oh, here we go. I mean, we were lied to about 9/11. That's just objectively true. We're not going to get into the 9/11 stuff, but, like, we don't know what happened on 9/11. That's the long and short of it. Like, if you think you know what happened on 9/11, you're wrong, because there's never been an investigation. The only investigation that occurred, literally everybody abandoned it. Somebody like Noam Chomsky ripped the shit out of it, right? So we don't actually know what happened on 9/11. Yeah, at this point, I don't think the people with money understand what they're doing. Yeah. I think people with money totally don't understand what they're doing. They just like to act like they do know while they only have the faintest of plans. No, I'm going to disagree with you guys. I think the people with money do know what they're doing. I think they do know what they're doing. It's just that they know what they're doing for themselves. That's it. Like, they have... If they have any kind of meta perspective, like if they ever look at a map and go, well, I have holdings in Texas over here and that can connect. If they're ever doing any of that, it is always so that they or their children will be well positioned. That is it. There is no larger contemplation that exists in their minds beyond. There is no contemplation that exists in their mind beyond, how do I secure more power and prestige and wealth for myself? So they have no social awareness. They have no awareness of how a society is built. They have no theory about how to build a society. I think that that's the most crucial part. That what they are doing for themselves, and they have no theory, no concept of a theory about how to build a stable society. Like, because they're not interested in that. That's not what they're there for. Gender is entirely a cultural phenomenon, yeah. Well, and there's this lie that conservatives constantly love to say, that there's only two sexes. That's biologically the truth. Well, no, it isn't. Like, it just isn't. It's biologically not the truth. Like, that gender is actually quite fluid. Not gender, rather. Biological sex is actually quite fluid. That there are a lot of different things going on at the biological level, right? For a flickering moment, I had this like, well, yeah, right, there is biologically just two genders, right? Or two sexes, rather. You've got the male, and they have the penis, right? And you got the woman, and they have the vagina, right? And that's obviously the case. But it just turns out that that's the most common iteration, right? That biologically there are actually, on the chromosomal level, there is actually a wide array, right? It's just that we don't talk about it or acknowledge it or know anything about it. And when conservative types stand up and say, there are only two sexes, that's just science, right? Facts don't care about your feelings. They're just revealing their illiteracy and stupidity, frankly, which is why they never actually talk to trans rights activists, right? Like people like Joe Rogan, even someone like Joe Rogan doesn't have trans rights activists on his, or professors or anything, right? That he's willing to say his dumb, stupid, bigoted shit and have dumb, stupid, bigoted people on his show in order to talk like dumb, stupid, bigoted idiots about the subject, but he's not willing to actually talk to an expert, right? Like, when has Joe Rogan ever had, like, a trans rights professor or a gender professor or any of that kind of stuff on his show, right? Never. Like, never. It's because the system demands a sacrifice, and trans people are that sacrifice. U.S. is to blame for the terror attacks whenever they did it, or not, because they already destabilized the region. I'm reminded of a recent video that came out with William Shatner attempting to reflect on his trip to space with Jeff Bezos, who was a total jerk about it and just so inhuman and cold in his response. Like, absolutely. I remember that video. I remember that William Shatner was standing there, and he... you could get a lot of views if you clip that discussion about gender and put it in a YouTube short. Oh, I'm not recording this. So, too bad. Good idea, though. I should go back to recording it. I've fallen, a lot of stuff has fallen by the wayside in the last few months. A lot of stuff has fallen by the wayside. Thing number one is that I'm not doing the daily walkabout videos anymore, which I want to start doing again. And thing number two is recording the show so that I can clip stuff. That's number two. So I gotta get back to a lot of different stuff. A lot of stuff has fallen by the wayside in this last little while. Ugh. I remember when Shatner landed and he was trying to talk to Bezos about what the experience was like. And then Bezos got distracted by some hot girl with champagne bottle, basically interrupted Shatner so that he could take a champagne bottle and spray it all over the place, including on recovering alcoholic William Shatner, and then turned and tried to hand him the bottle. Like, you should get your Discord to clip your talks, then upload them to eat you for your approval. If you guys want to do that, I don't ask anything of the people who follow me, but people seem excited. I get very I don't know, that feels weird to me. That's all. That just feels weird to me. I'm just like, okay. Like, if people want to do that, I'm not going to stop them, but I feel very like, oh, okay. Like, I have trust issues. I'll just put it all out there for you guys, okay? I have big trust issues. I don't trust people. I generally have kind of a lone wolf philosophy. I take care of myself, right? And I know why. Like, there's a lot of reasons why that's the case. But so I think that people who, like viewers especially, right, who are very kind and very nice, right? They want to get involved, they want to participate, they want to do stuff. But my brain immediately goes to, this is going to result in problems for me. Like, that's what my brain immediately goes to. That you are over there thinking, oh, this would be a nice idea, and you could have this, and this would create a larger kind of thing, and all that kind of platform. And all my brain is thinking is, how is this going to turn into a massive problem for me? Right? And so when people offer that kind of stuff, I'm very like, thank you, I appreciate that. That's very kind of you. If you were to do it, I wouldn't stop you from doing it, right? I'm not disinterested in that idea, but I'm constantly like, oh yeah, okay, when is this going to become a big problem for me? I'm expecting it to happen. Yeah. But again, like, I think it's lovely that people make these kinds of ideas and offer these sorts of things. I think it's absolutely lovely. To me, it just speaks to the excitement of the viewership and how engaged and interested they are. That they want to do more, right? They want to participate in this larger, grander sort of way. There's something kind of sweet about it, you know. And I just don't know what to think about it. Like, I just don't know what to think about that. Like, at the end of the day, I'm just a guy, right? Like, at the end of the day, I'm just like a guy who is not going to sit down and be silent while we experience this. Like, I will articulate what existing in this reality is like, so that anybody who wants to know can know exactly what it was like during this period of time for the average working person. And guess what? It was really, really shitty. It was really, really shitty. Things could have been a lot nicer. We could have had a much better time. But the reason why we didn't is because we have owners. And those owners don't give a fuck. And it is that simple. And if anybody is going to stand up and be like, but the owners are that. Like, these guys are not any different than, like, William the Conqueror. Like, these guys are not any different than any monarch who's ever ruled. Right? You think that Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg or Jeff Bezos are somehow different than ancient kings? How? Why? What makes you think that? Like, in many ways, I think these men are more powerful. Right? They've got more wealth. They can shoot rockets into space. Like, these people are connected in ways that the kings of yore would have salivated over. They've got private militaries that would absolutely roll over and decimate any of these kingships. I think the only major difference that exists between the kings of yore and the owners of today and the investors of today is that the investors of today have less responsibility and have less expectation put on them. That we've granted them the power of these kings with none of the responsibility to the citizenry. Like, and the moronic libertarians that exist within the society go, that's right. That's the way to organize a civil society. That you give all the power and money and wealth to one person, and then they're gonna do good with it. That's what's gonna happen. That's what's gonna happen. No, we gotta make sure we got a Congress and a Senate and a Supreme Court and the media to keep an eye on them so that the spheres of power, so that the power is diffused within the system, right? And even then, the government gets in the way and it's all that kind of stuff. So the solution to this is to give all that power and money and wealth to one guy. And he'll trickle it down. Yup. Like, I really do think that the libertarian movement is essentially a group of people whose brains have broken. I'm actually dead serious about this. Like, I'm not trying to be mean, even though it's going to sound really fucking mean. I think that what we are seeing is a group of people who have been confronted with reality and it broke their brains. Like, I don't think that they can actually handle what reality actually is. That it's so overwhelmingly ridiculous and absurd that they have to retreat into fantasy worlds. Because the reality of what is happening in front of them is far too ridiculous. I genuinely think that that's what's happened. And then when you go and you talk to these libertarian types, you are just talking to a guy whose brain is not functioning. Like, literally. Like, on a 1 + 1 = 2 kind of level. I just don't think they have the mental capacity because their entire brain is being used to try to process and make sense of what it is to live in a fucking world that's so goddamn stupid. Like, this is stupid what we're doing, right? Like, if we were to get 10 people into a room and create an organizational structure to ensure the maximum well-being for all of the people in the room. And if I said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to take all of the resources and give it to this guy, like literally roll a dice and say, okay, this guy won. You're the guy. You have all the resources. You're the one that gets to make all the decisions. You're the guy who gets to do it, right? Do you think the people in the room would legitimately be like, oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, that seems normal, right? Probably fucking not. Like, probably fucking not. Like, it seems like that would be the last idea that would happen. Yeah, the way for us to organize, like if 10 people washed up on an island somewhere, right? If 10 people washed up on an island somewhere, do you think they legitimately would organize themselves using capitalist principles? Do you think that would be the first thing that would happen? The only way it would happen is if a couple of the guys picked up weapons and forced everybody into slavery. That's capitalism 101 right there. That's how capitalism starts, right? You enforce your will on other people through the threat of physical violence. That's how it works. It's not a bad idea to remember and think about the terrible shit that has happened to people after making friends on the internet. Well, and there's like there's a big jump between good intentions and good creation. And I'm just, again, like anyway, that's fine. I love this quote by Biden, 2 words, made in America. That's like some good George Bush level shit right there, right? You know, if you fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, yet you ain't gonna get fooled again. That's how I say that quote now, by the way. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, I ain't gonna get fooled again. I don't know how he managed to fuck that one up too, because he was almost there, right? He was almost there. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on. Where do you think this goes, Georgie? Where do you think this goes? All right, whatever. You know, I don't actually mind this kind of stuff. Like these sorts of gaffes, right? These sorts of gaffes, like 2 words made in America, right? These sorts of things where it's like people have brain farts all the time, right? People. I'll burn that bridge when I get to it. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, like I don't like. These sorts of gaffes, I think, made sense in a pre-internet, even like pre-television era, when like the president would come out and talk to the press and to the people. There was this veneer, you know, that there was this pageantry and a presentation, so that when the president came out, it by itself was something of a rare event. Right? And there was something of an understanding that when the president spoke, it was designed and it was speech-based. He wasn't just firing shit off by the cuff and all that kind of stuff. And he wasn't constantly filmed and constantly taped, you know? And then as television starts to kind of unfold, right? Yeah, we tortured some folks was a good one. Yeah. Good old folksy charm from Obama. Yep, we tortured some folk. Yuck. But then as television begins to pick up and it becomes more ubiquitous, right, you begin to catch these guys in more casual setting and in more like less like in a lot of the conversations that they're having with average citizens, like when they go on the campaign trail and they're kissing the babies and shaking the hands and all that kind of stuff. Well, now that shit's getting filmed, right? And so now instead of it just being like Jim Bob with a story about how the president said, yeah, he was trying to say this. He was trying to say, you know, 2 in the bush is better than 1 in the hand, or 1 in the hand's better than 2 in the bush. Yeah, you see, he fucked it up, right? Like instead of that being Jim Bob's story, now it's been filmed, blasted across the nation. President Jim Bob Belushi today said 2 in the hand is better than 1 in the bush. Fucking up the phrase forever. What an idiot, right? So I don't really hang my hat on any of this stuff. And in the age of the internet, like, I genuinely do think that one of the big reasons why Trump gained a lot of traction amongst the general populace is because he said this kind of shit all the time, and he just was like, yeah, well, what are you gonna do? Like, one of his most brilliant things that he ever did was like, people were like, he said shit like, you know, sometimes these beautiful women, you go up and you just grab them by the pussy. Right? And fucking the entire media apparatus was like, that's it, dude. Like, he's donezo. Right? Everybody thought that he was donezo. And then when somebody asked him about it, he went, bah, it was just locker talk. And every fucking man in America went, yeah, it was just fucking locker talk. Yeah, it's just some fucking locker talk there, you know? Yeah, you know? Just a man talking about grabbing a woman by the pussy, you know, like you do in the locker. Like you do in the locker. Because they do. Because they do. Right? And I think that Trump gained a lot of traction with that kind of shit. Where he was just like, yeah, whatever. And like his tweets, like the mainstream media apparatus was like, he just sounds like a lunatic nutbag. And it's like, no, he doesn't. He sounds like a normal, average, everyday citizen just saying shit. Like, that's it. Like, that's it. That's like literally what Trump did. He's just like, yeah, I'm just talking shit. And people loved him. Right? I don't think there's a mystery to it. Like, take a look at Archie Bunker, for Christ's sakes. Take a look at Al Bundy, for Christ's sakes. Like, these people are popular figures in American culture. And Trump was just like, yeah, I can do that shit. I just fucked everything up. I just fucked everything up with the click of a mouse. It's crazy how old Biden is. He's 79. I wonder if his inner circle honestly thinks there isn't a serious chance he could die in office. Yeah, I for sure. Like, I'll say it again and again, right? Like, it's not that important who's in that position at this point, right? It's not that important. As long as when something's put in front of him, he signs it, you know? Like, it doesn't matter that much. Like, Joe Biden's not making decisions, you know? Like, no more than Trump was making decisions. Like, they're not... Do you think that the development of television and the internet advanced the socialist movement or not? Television, no. You know what, man? This is such a great question. That's literally like a PhD thesis question. Like, and that is a really great question. Because it's kind of what I think about a lot. Like, technology itself is just a tool, right? That, like, it can be used for bad and it can be used for good. And I think that television more than film. Film initially was full of socialists. And it's the reason why the McCarthy movement went through Hollywood so specifically. Because Hollywood and the film industry from the beginning were full of socialists, right? And communists. People who were artists and creators, right? Who managed to create... Like, Charlie Chaplin is a socialist character. There's just... I don't think that you can argue this. So... By the time television rolls around, the apparatus has a stronger knowledge of the power of this technology. And television arises about the same time that the McCarthy movement is happening, right? And it would be difficult for me to say that television wasn't used as a propagandizing tool. Right? That information was funneled through very specific gatekeepers. There weren't that many channels, right? So what you saw on TV, like what you were seeing on TV, most everyone else was seeing on TV, right? So that also creates a strong propagandizing effect. And it's impossible. Like, one of the things that I forgive the boomers for a lot is that they were the first generation to be bombarded with television propaganda. Like, television propaganda was powerful, and they also didn't really have any kind of defense mechanism. Like, today, I think there are more people. I don't think it's everybody, obviously, but there are more people who have an awareness of the power of propaganda and the propagandizing nature of media, right? So there's more of that kind of stuff. And I think when the internet began, it had a really radicalizing effect. I think the internet was a radicalizing technology, way more radicalizing than I think the power structure understood, right? Because it allowed people to get different alternative ideas out into the world, right? Like the nature of the money supply, that's a fiat currency, right? That it's not rooted in anything. It's literally printed out of thin air. Like, this is an idea that spread through the internet really quickly. I remember it when it happened. That there was a period of time when the internet was like a Wild West frontier. Like, anyone could do anything and say anything, and there were no rules or ideas or concepts or any of that kind of shit going on, right? The corporations hadn't yet come in and ruined everything. But now the internet has become much more controlled. It's much harder to actually connect just through happenstance with socialist organizations. That we are currently going through what amounts to a period of neo-McCarthyism right now, for sure, and which I expect will get worse. So it's been something of a mixed bag across time, right? That, like, you think about, like, the 9/11 truth movement. The 9/11 truth movement could not have existed without the internet. That the internet blew the 9/11 truth movement up in a way that I think it could not have or would not have previously. And the 9/11 truth movement is absolutely a radicalizing movement. 9/11 and what happened on 9/11 and the subsequent fallout from it was absolutely a radicalizing event for many people. So if it wasn't for the internet, I don't think that would have even happened. But now the power structure and the CIA and CSIS and these organizations are getting much more sophisticated. So it's the bots alone, right? And the algorithmic control, I think, is really the difference. Yeah, that's really the difference. That when the internet first existed, there were no algorithms, right? There wasn't like an algorithmic control system the way that there is now. That now the internet is largely controlled by algorithm, and you can simply be they don't need to deplatform you anymore. That they can just deprioritize you. They can just make sure that, like, oh, when you type in capitalism, you're not going to get my show, right? You're not going to get capitalism as a death cult, right? That's not the first thing that's going to come up. You're going to PragerU video, right? Like that's what they're doing. So they can sort of sidestep accusations of blacklisting people, right? And you just be like, oh, we're not blacklisting people. We're just promoting reputable sources. And what are those reputable sources? Well, establishment sources that are owned by billionaires, that are owned by the oligarchy, right? So you've been effectively blacklisted. That's why I say, if you're like looking for political commentators and political information, like, go to page 10. Like, don't go to page 1. Go to page like 10 or 20. Like, go deeper. Give people lower on the list a shot, because the algorithm is deprioritizing people on purpose, and that algorithmic control is without a doubt the thing that's holding back the socialist movement more than anything else. He won't run in 2024, citing health reasons, and then when Bernie runs, they'll say he's older than Biden. Yeah. Bernie will not run in 2024. We'll see. We'll see how it all shakes out. I mean, it's again, like you've heard me say it 100 times. It is all theater. They said the same thing about the printing press and radio. Like, no, don't get me wrong. Like, the internet and all that has been like an enormous information spreading thing. It's been radicalizing. But the question is whether or not it's advanced the socialist movement. That's the real question. Yeah, he'd just end up endorsing whoever the Dems picked again anyway, yeah. Bernie might be dead by 2024, yeah. Everyone should watch the clip of Charlie Chaplin being fed his lunch by a machine. I wonder if I can, I wonder if I could just bring up some, like, Charlie Chaplin compilation? I bet I could do a compilation. Oh, hi. Yeah, here you go. Here you go. This is a great thing to put on. Thank you, Jack. I appreciate it. Yeah, sorry about the Discord struggle, guys, but I'm happy to say that we've got it up and running. If you guys do want to do a chat, if you want to do a call-in, like I've got somebody sitting here, right? I lied. I don't have Netflix. Take off your shoes. We're going to watch Parenti's Yellow Lecture. Like, we got somebody named Catalyst here. Just say hello in the chat if you want to actually chat. If you've got something that you feel like you want to discuss, I'm open for that. More than happy to talk to people. One of the things that I think Charlie Chaplin films do especially, right? Like, the position of Chaplin films is, without a doubt, anti-cop. That police officers are frequently made to look buffoonish and are frequently the antagonist to Charlie Chaplin. You don't see that anymore. You don't see that anymore. Quite the opposite. Now you've got shows like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, right? Now you've got shows like Brooklyn Nine-Nine that are trying to teach you that cops are good. There's just a couple of bad apples, you know? Cops are good people. They're trying to help. They do good things. They catch the bad guy, right? Did anyone else hear Al-Qaeda fighters maybe in Ukraine to fight Russia? Yeah, probably. Like, that's not going to be a significant fighting force. I think that's something to understand about that story, right? Like, that makes a good headline, but that's not a significant. Facebook keeps pushing content that criticizes the Cuban government despite the facts that I don't want it because it's done by guys paid by the US NGOs. Like, oh, you want to talk? Let's go, bud. This is John Smith again, who helped me out earlier. Appreciate it. Let's have a chat. Hey, Johnny Smith Hands. How you doing, bud?
Good. You?
I'm doing really well. What's going on in your world at Minnesota?
Grinding Final Fantasy 11. So if you go to liveuamap.com, it has a current live map of the struggle.
liveuamap.com?
Yep.
Oh, here's a great resource. Oh, fantastic. Okay.
And if you go to I'm going to butcher the hell out of that.
Of course, we all do every time.
Slavic. Savotiv, I want to say, in the western part of Luhansk.
Is there a search function on this?
Let me open up the stream here. I have you on my phone.
I don't see one, so that's fine. No, that's fine. We don't need to get bogged down in that. Okay. So Luhansk, we are looking at. Oh yeah,
there
fantastic.
We go. And if you go up to the left there, they're up and left, not down and left.
Are we looking at this icon?
Oh, Luhansk. Okay. Up north and to the west. I have it a little bit different on mine.
So hold on. Give me a name. Are we looking at Zavotov Oblast?
Yeah, Savotov.
Savotov. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, they're making a push up there, and they want to get to Star Blista.
Who's they? Who's they?
Ukraine.
So Ukraine is making a push right here, right now.
Yep, from what the Ukrainian subreddit says, and Credible Defense.
So yeah, they're trying to push in. This would be good territory for the Ukrainians to go after. For sure.
Well, they want to go east to Star Blansk because there's a main railroad station there, and they want to get that so they can cut off all supplies to Donbass there in the south.
Yeah, that's
because there's a main railway.
That's obviously what the Ukrainians and NATO, frankly, that's obviously what NATO is attempting to do. That with the destruction of the Crimean Bridge, right? They've made it very clear that what they want to do is try to starve out frontline positions, right? So if you can cut supply chains and cut supply lines, then you can bleed out the front lines, right? Which can, you deplete ammunition, you deplete this kind of stuff. I just don't think it's going to work. Like, I think the Russians have a better stranglehold than people want to admit.
I don't know. Ukraine's getting another shipment of HIMARS here, and if they can do that, they can definitely do some flanking maneuvers by using artillery as cover.
Yeah, like I'm not trying to deny that, like. Sorry. Excuse me. Oh my goodness. Oh.
Tea with a little bit of honey.
Uh-huh. Oh, that came on suddenly. Oh. My position on the current happenings of what's going on. Oh. For every Russian citizen, or for every Russian military man that the Ukrainians kill, the Russians are killing 5 of the Ukrainians. That's been true since almost the beginning of the conflict. And now, with the ramping up, so Putin has ramped up his attack, right? We've got an article right here. Russia blew up about a third of Ukraine's energy infrastructure in 2 days, right? That like.
Oh yeah, and Ukraine has stopped energy exports to the EU just to conserve.
Yep. And that's going to cause more problems for the EU, of course, because the EU is also in an energy crisis of its own, right?
Did you see that Germany just told the Germans, the Germans just told Russia kindly that we don't want gas from the Nord Stream 2?
Yeah, of course they're going to say that right now. Like, I mean, there's no... The Americans don't want there to be a diplomatic solution. What we are... And here's the thing, is that... So, the Ukrainians, like, they gained ground over here, right? At not that long ago, right? It's a story that everybody's already forgotten, right? And I assume that they'll also gain ground here, right? But what's happening? What's happening is that these victories that the Ukrainians are winning are what's called Pyrrhic victories, right? A Pyrrhic victory is a technical win where you actually do gain the territory. Your stated objective is to gain this territory, and you actually do it, but that the cost of gaining it outweighs the benefit of having gained it. So if you have an
net
army,
loss don't gain.
Yeah, if you have an army of 100,000 people that's rolling in to seize a piece of territory and you lose 90,000 people, so that's a Pyrrhic victory. Like, you got the territory, you won, but you lost. but that's the end of your fighting force, right? And every single time Ukraine pushes into territory, tries to gain any kind of thing, this is the result. That it looks good for headlines. It looks good from a propaganda perspective that Ukraine makes gains in Slovets region or Sotova region, right? But they don't report that they depleted the majority. They depleted the majority of their fighting force to do it. So, so there's no follow-up, right?
Yeah.
And because there's no follow-up, what the Russians are now doing is they just went through a mobilization, right? That they're going to field between 200 and 300,000 men, right? And they're going to put they're going to flood this region with 200 to 300,000 more men. Well, Ukraine isn't doing that. It doesn't have the capability to do that. Remember at the start of the war, they were so desperate that they were literally giving guns to citizens. At the start of the war, they were literally emptying their prisons. This is the level that the Ukrainians are at from the beginning. And the
Russia's not doing the same thing too, though.
What's that?
Russia's doing the same thing. The Wagner PMC is recruiting from Russian prisons. You get time served plus whatever you do.
Right.
Whatever you're doing.
So that's what they're doing now. That's what they're doing now. Right? That they didn't start like that. That's what they're doing now.
Yeah, but that's what they're doing now.
So they're falling back to a position that the Ukrainians started at. And so now the Ukraine and let's be really straight. The Ukrainian forces that started the war have been defeated. That the Azov regiment, the Ukrainian forces that were fielded have been defeated. That what we're looking at now is the remaining forces that the Ukrainians had at the beginning, which have now integrated with NATO forces. That NATO forces have now come in, and that's who's pushing into these regions. That's who's coming in to seize this territory, right? It's these NATO forces. So Russia has not only had to fight against the Ukrainians, now they're fighting a second offensive against NATO. And it's turned into a slow, grinding slaughter.
Yeah, it's attrition at most right now.
It's absolutely attrition. It's a war of attrition that the Russians are winning. And not only and this, in my view, is the most important part. That if you're not thinking about this crucial key, you're really not invested in how this war is going to end or go, which is that for the NATO forces, for the NATO nations, including America, right? This is not an existential threat. This is literally turning to your populations who are by and large comfortable, who are by and large maybe spooked, sure. Like if you're in France or Germany or Italy, you're spooked, I suspect, right? But the war is not on your doorstep, nor is there any indication from the Russians that they're interested in bringing the war to your doorstep. And so your kids are not graduating from high school and going, I'm going to go join the war effort. Your kids aren't leaving their jobs, right? Your 25-year-olds aren't leaving their jobs and going off to war in Ukraine, right? None of that's going to happen because they're by and large happy with what's going on in their country. They're not going to risk their lives for a conflict they don't believe in. And even though they'll happily wave the flag, right? They'll happily wave the little yellow and blue flag as long as it's over there. But they're not going over there. And the people who were going to go over there already did. They were the foreign fighters, right? They already went and got defeated and came home. And that's what's happening on the Western side. There's not going to be a conscription effort. All of the NATO militaries, including America, are missing their targets for recruitment. They can't get people to sign up. Nobody wants to fight these wars anymore. Nobody wants to go to war, right? So you end up with a bunch of people who are essentially sitting on their ass, eating cheeseburgers, looking at their phones, bitching about the war from across an ocean. Compare that to what's going on in Russia. The Russians view this as an existential threat. That this war is on their doorstep. That there are high-powered, missile-carrying machines of death on their border being shot by Nazis. On their border. Killing, for 8 years before the Russians even got involved, killing Russian people. People who used to be in a country that was part of Russia not that long ago. The Russian people will not sit on the couch eating cheeseburgers, bitching about this war on social media. That when Putin announced the conscription, it was not popular, obviously, but the Russians understood that it must be done. That for us, this is a game. For the Russians, this is life and death. That we're trying to win an economic power struggle between us and China and the global south and all of that kind of stuff. Russia is fighting for its life. That's the difference. We are not going to win this conflict. Because if push comes to shove, Putin will call for millions of Russians to be conscripted. For millions of Russians to be conscripted, if push comes to shove. And while they'll complain and struggle, and sure there'll be some arsons, and sure there'll be some arrests, and sure there'll be some shit, millions of people will walk into Ukraine. Millions of them. Because they're not going to be happy about it, but they understand it must be done. You think Europe's going to be able to do that? You think America's going to be able to do that?
Don't know. We're gonna have to. I'm thinking we should probably wait till late spring. Late winter, early spring. See what happens. If there's going to be any winter pushes.
This winter is going to be
rough,
absurd for what happens throughout Europe. For what happens throughout Europe, it's. Don't be too surprised to just see complete and total civil unrest.
France is already right there. They're all upset because of gas prices.
Yep. Well, everybody should.
The Germans are being kind of whiny about it, but the government's telling them to shut up.
Yeah. Well, when people are shivering
put on
in their
another
houses,
sweater.
Right? When people are like, let's take a look at this, okay? Like, take a look at this, okay? Here's
I don't understand how they don't have their houses in their homes insulated like we do here in North America.
Their houses were built in 1543, right? Like every place that exists in these European these European nations were built like over thousands and there's like Roman architecture in some of these fucking places. Like it's I shouldn't say some of these fucking there's Italy. Like Italy is Roman architecture, right? Like so
I think that's got like 2,500 years of precedence.
Yeah. and like I take a look at where Germany sits. Or take a look at where Germany sits along the equator line, right? They're essentially right in line with the border between Canada and like this place is gonna get fucking cold.
Oh yeah.
Like
this in Minnesota right there, it gets the North Dakota, South Dakota,
yeah.
West Minnesota border.
Yeah.
That sucker gets hit with negative 40 C.
Yeah. Like these people are gonna freeze. Like they're sort of whining right now. What happens to Germans when they start to fucking freeze?
I know what happens with mid-North American continent cold during the winter, but not Europe. I've never really paid attention to their winters and their weather patterns.
Oh, we're getting some. Hold on, I bet you I can make adjustments here. Yeah, just gonna turn you down. Okay, that should.
Am I too loud?
I'm being informed by the chat that you are louder than I am.
Oh, I apologize.
Oh, no, that's not you. That's me. I'm still working with how this all works. And I am my usual beautiful self. So hopefully.
I am Johnny. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, we're all good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And Adam is saying, I saw a photo of a student in class in blankets because the school can't afford the heat. Like, we are looking at a period of massive unrest in Europe. And given what just recently happened in Italy, I don't think we're going to see like a swing to the communists. Like, I think it's going to get really, really erratic. And things are going to get really, really scary, really, really fast.
Oh, yeah.
I do think that the major difference that is at play and the saving grace is very much what I was saying earlier, which is that, like, in the rise of World War II, like, the Germans were being humiliated by the impoverishment that was inflicted to them by the Allies post-World War I, right? Like, so they had this sort of general sense of humiliation. And it was that humiliation that was really seized upon by the Nazis in order to galvanize a public, in order to justify this sort of expansionist war, right? It's not the same things that are happening. That the people of Germany, I don't think, are feeling humiliated. I think that they're feeling frustrated, right? But I don't think that they're sitting there going, and the solution is to go to war and to stand up and fight a big, long war. One hopes in any case. One hopes in any case. The disturbing thing that's happening to me from what I see in Ukraine is the unwillingness of the West to even come and sit at the table. When does this update? How often do they update this?
I think every few hours, or if something big really happens.
Well, it seems like there's lots of big stuff going on right now.
Yeah, but they probably have to fact check first.
Oh, there's that. That's fair.
They want to be factual.
Yeah.
And Moldova is thinking of mobilizing as well, because if you go to the left a little.
Yeah.
Oh, there's the bridge. If you go down to the coast, some of that is Moldovan area, sea, and the Russians decided to shoot some missiles that way, and they violated Moldovan airspace, and Moldova's considering whether to mobilize or not.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, but Moldova is. So hold on. Did you say the Russians fired those missiles or the Ukrainians?
The Russians to get into. They were playing stupid degree of angle games.
But isn't Moldova on the side of the Russians in this conflict?
Transnistria is, but Moldova is EU aligned. They already submitted their application, and I think they're in I think Partnership for Peace.
Oh yeah, that's right. This is one of these situations where like Moldova is here, but this like little strip is that's why I've always made that mistake. It's this like little tiny strip is Russian aligned, but Moldova itself is not. Oh my god. I mean, if I was Moldova, I'd definitely be sitting there being like, well, this is an existential threat. Like, yeah, Transnistria, perfect. The 143 countries votes in favor of condemning Russia's annexation of 4 Ukrainian territories. That's not an insignificant number.
Are you?
I wonder. Where's China? China abstains.
So, right now, Moldova is in candidate status for.
I mean,
the EU.
How does anybody actually think it's going to go, though? Like this is kind of the hard reality about it. Like the choice is between a negotiated peace, which all conflicts end up in a negotiated peace at some point or another.
Yeah.
And or endless war, right? These are the choices. And so, like, how do they think these are going to go? I'm curious to see who voted. So, Syria, of course. Syria votes the Russians themselves, obviously. Nicaragua, interesting choice. And Belarus.
China abstained as well, like usual.
This is a really, really, actually quite a telling. Like this tells a pretty big story, right? Like who's willing to condemn, who's trying to stay out of it, right? And it's interesting to see like Afghanistan, Albania, like a lot of places that I would assume would abstain have gone along with it.
And the ones that are abstaining are the ones that want to retain economic stability, because look, China and India, anything that comes up with Ukraine or anything like that, they've just been straight up abstain.
Yeah, that's true.
They're not happy about it either way, but they don't want to rock the boat on either sort of side, because Russia's a major trading partner, but so is the West and a lot of the other global North. But so they're just like, hey, we're just going to abstain from this, just keep the status quo and keep their interests to themselves.
Where the fuck
they
is
aren't
Korea
helping
on
or
this list? Like, oh, it's going to be the DPRK. That's what it's going to be. Yeah. Hard pass. That's interesting to see that the People's Republic of Korea is doing the hard thing. They're not trying to play this game of abstaining. And like it makes sense for China to abstain, right? Like China really can't involve itself in this. Like China has its own difficulties going on. Cuba also abstains. India, Kazakhstan abstains. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's crazy, because the CSTO members, Mongolia, most of them are either abstaining or just straight up are like, no, Russia is in the wrong on this. Armenia's pissed at Russia because because Armenia called the CSTO equivalent of Article 5 for NATO, and Russia was like, no, we're doing our own thing. And that was the whole point of CSTO. You'd be under Russia's umbrella, but they're being hammered by Azerbaijan.
Oh, goodness. There's a little part of me that sort of just goes, just drop the nukes already. Let's just get this shit over with. Like, this whole fucking ridiculous bullshit. What do we...
Well, hold on. Let me load up on bottle caps first.
Yeah, exactly. Let's. No, that's bullshit. If the nukes drop, we're fucked. Like that's the end of it. We're not. It's funny that they've included what's going on in Georgia on this map.
Well,
it's funny.
Yeah. Uh, from what it sounds like from the political science guys, that this whole thing with Ukraine is really taking the pressure off of occupied Moldova and Georgia, and they could possibly take back that stuff if they wanted to, if there was a political will for it. But
Yeah.
that's remained to be seen.
Remains to be seen, and to me, if I'm Russia, like what was happening in Georgia, I don't know much about the Moldova situation, but what was happening in Georgia was definitely unacceptable from the Russian perspective, and their involvement in that needed to I think they were drawn to it. But like this whole situation with Ukraine is a whole other ball of wax, man. Like just a whole other ball of wax. This
But I don't think we have to worry about nukes, because especially in Ukraine, because well, if they want to take Ukraine, they aren't going to freaking nuke it, because well, we're going to put people there because Imperial's going to Imperial, and if there's any sort of radioactive fallout that hits the NATO country, they've already stated one bit of fallout in a NATO country, it's Article 5 automatically.
Yeah. Well,
so
if Russia's been pretty clear about what its red lines are, and I say it over and over again, right? Like, what do they need to actually say to convince? What do the Russians actually need to say to convince the West that they're not bluffing? Like the West seems to constantly believe that the Russians are bluffing, and then stumble into a situation and find out that the Russians were in fact not bluffing.
Well, I think that has a lot to do with the DPRK. They're constantly saying nukes, 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 but it's like, dude, either do it or shut up.
Yeah, either do it or shut up.
Yeah. Like, at this point, you're just going to be skeptical because you've dealt with it for how many decades with North Korea now?
I mean, the North Korean position is like they have to constantly shake that like the North Koreans know what the Americans will do. Like they know better than anybody, right? Or as well as anyone can. Like North Korea was leveled to the ground. Like there's documentation. Like their cities were rubble. They completely destroyed North Korea. And so yeah, the North Koreans are definitely going to be like, yep, nukes. They're going to go to high alert at the drop of a hat, because they know what the Americans are capable of, and in a very personal sort of way. And so I don't blame them at all. Every single and the portrayal of the North Koreans is like, oh, they're crazy and their leadership's lost their mind. It's like, no. Like they just know and they understand what the threat is. Like they know
when there's only 25 authorized haircuts,
Yeah, exactly.
This gets a little kooky.
Yeah, Americans plan to nuke Korea and Vietnam. Yeah, like I don't the general sense of apologetics that seems to happen in the discourse is deeply concerning to me. Like the amount of dismissal. Like we're just supposed to ignore that North Korea was leveled to the ground. We're just supposed to ignore the Vietnam War, the Laos War, the Cambodian War. We're just supposed to ignore those things, that they didn't happen. And we're supposed to accept that neighboring countries like China and Russia are just supposed to not notice that, not pay attention to it whatsoever, or just accept it. We're just supposed to we genuinely as a people seem to think that the other nations of the world, when they see us go into a place like Libya and return the slave trade to Libya, that the other nations of the world are supposed to go, good, the Americans did a good thing. It's just pretty fucking ridiculous. I've seen a lot of headlines. Matthias, good to see you. I've seen a lot of headlines saying things like NATO guy warns people need to prepare for nuke war. Like, how does one prepare for that? Guys, I'm gonna tell it to you, and I'm gonna tell it to you straight. If anybody drops a nuclear bomb at any point, society is over. Like, that is my opinion, and that is what I'm going to say. You do not need to follow the rules of an illegitimate class that claims rulership. You don't need to follow the rules of Voldemort. You don't need to follow the rules of Darth Vader. You need to be aware of them insofar as they can commit violence. But a society that's willing to drop nuclear bombs at this stage in the game is a society whose laws are not laws, but threats. And
that sounds like me in Civilization.
You're under no obligation whatsoever to follow the rules of a psychotic ruler.
Of course, I play the economic and military game in all my Civilization runs.
Oh, I've been getting into Civilization a little bit more recently. I just love to hit the random button and see what it generates.
Oh.
This is one of the things that I'm starting to really realize about Civilization. I don't really care to finish games of Civilization, you know? Get to the point where you get the victory. I don't care. I tend to peter out at around the medieval age, because it's around the medieval age that you've discovered the entire map. And so I've come to really recognize in myself that it's not actually the achieving of the victory. And in fact, I find that kind of concept within the framework of a game like Civilization to be kind of odd. That there is such a thing as like a civilization that attains victory forever, perpetually. But I understand it's a game, so but But for me, no, go ahead.
Oh, for me, I just like, I'll get to the I think it's 300 mark for turns or whatever, and by that time, I'm pretty sure I can take the whole map.
Yeah.
Then I just start warmongering bonuses.
Yeah, the thing that I think gets me, like, I just love the exploration aspect of it. I think that's what it comes down to. That if somebody were to create a game like Civilization, where it was like a randomly generated map, but the idea, instead of building a civilization, what you were doing was exploring the map and trying to discover its secrets, and that if there was a way for the map to be randomly generated so that there was somewhere in it a secret to be found, so that it would end up being kind of like a game of hide and seek at the end of the day.
Make it non-linear.
Yeah, that think of just like you would spawn into a Minecraft world. I think Minecraft would actually be the perfect place to do this.
Speaking of Minecraft,
what's that?
In the 1920s, America got rid of child labor in the mines, but now in 2020, they yearned for the mines in Minecraft.
Yeah, getting rid of child mining was a mistake. The children yearn for the mines. Yeah. That's a great meme. But like, if there was like that kind of a thing, but then there was a spawn of something for you to find. I guess that kind of already exists in Minecraft, though, doesn't it? Because you are supposed to be trying to find the portal or the gate or something.
Yeah, to some dragon or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
The whole dragon at the end and all that kind of stuff. So I guess that does kind of already exist in Minecraft. So I think what I'm talking myself into is that I should play more Minecraft, right? that I should load up a game of Minecraft and instead of focusing on like the building or the immersion aspect, I should be focusing on trying to find that portal or that gate. Anyway, that's a fun idea. All right, my friend, I'm going to mute you.
Okay.
Good talking to you, John.
Not.
Haha, I cut you off halfway. Eat it. That system works perfectly. That's going to work great. For anybody that wants to call into the show, that's gonna work really, really great. Well, guys, we've reached the end of this one. Sorry about this one being a bit more technical. Sorry about this one being a bit more random. But I hope that you guys are excited about the call-in aspect of it. I hope that that becomes kind of a larger component of the show. It's something that I've always wanted to do. I think, like, it is obviously a popular format that the CBC does it with the cross-country checkup. And I'm hoping that integrating that idea into it a little bit more will be something that adds a little flavor and a little enjoyment to the show. Oh, yeah. We all need better everything all the time, don't we? All right, guys. We've reached the end of this one. Always remember, you are a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes you'll never realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Rebel. Revolt. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.